Going to the air again. That pass is high. Oh, what a one-handed grab by Pearsall. And then he took a pop at the 30-yard line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
There's a slant on first down. Catch made by Coleman. Ding on Coleman, his first touchdown as a Seminole.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Youngblood, the man in motion. Simon feels the pressure. Hit as he throws. Intercepted. There he is. Cooper DeJean. And he's got some space in front. DeJean still on his feet across the 25. DeJean is going to take it for a pick six.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Penix looks the other direction down the seam. It's intercepted by Sanders-Still. Mikey Sanders-Still has a couple of blockers. A convoy. Michigan set up inside the 10.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
WKU will mix up tempos. Reed throws on the run, complete sideline, missed tackle, and this could be big. Hilltopper's on the way. It's Malachi Corley. Goodbye. 70-yard house call.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Play action, McMahon looking to fire to the end zone. McCaffrey on the run. Touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We will look back at the weekend of the NFL draft with a couple of nuggets there. Also, the transfer portal was busy, including even today. And Miami, Manny Navarro covers them for theathletic.com, picking up a couple of weapons today. The latest on Penny Boone, the young man from Louisville who was looking to move and then all of a sudden can't. Or maybe he will, possibly Orlando. So we'll get to a lot of that. And then a couple of nuggets on television broadcasting when it comes to the NFL. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak to my left and right. Garrett Ross, Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie helping run the mothership in various ways here on 365 Sports. So here's the list of college football teams. This is such a common denominator. It makes so much sense that these are the ones. What basically is the common denominator of these five schools other than, of course, what was unbeaten Florida State, who was left out?
Well, it's the teams that were in the college football playoff or should have been in the college football playoff.
And they had the most players drafted in the NFL draft. But you're right. Everybody but Florida State who was left out because of the semifinals. And there they are, the rich, and why they were good, and there's the reason why. And they'll all end up with a lot of players, not quite that many maybe, drafted next year.
Well, I think you saw with the totals and the way the configuration is going to be next year that this is, like I said last week, all these graphics that are like the Big Ten's got the most this since here and the SEC's got the most this since here. We're just going to hear that every single year from here on out because now they have more teams than they've ever had. And, for example, if you look at what the Pac-12 did and you go cut up their numbers and say, all right, well, let's take Washington's and let's take Oregon's and let's take UCLA's and let's take USC's. And I know in some cases, you know, some of these schools didn't make as much of a dent as the others, but you're looking at the Big Ten going from whatever their total was to adding about 20 players. You're looking at the SEC, whatever their total was, 11 with Texas and a down year for Oklahoma with 3. That's 14 new players they're going to have on their list. So what was already a bit of a gap, you know, in some cases that could be, you know, fought well like the Pac-12 did this year in their final year, their swan song. They had a great going out party, especially with the draft and just all the selections in the first round and beyond. But now that gets divvied up. That gets cut up and sliced, and some of that's going to the Big 12. But a lot of that's going to the Big Ten. So, yeah, I think that the power programs just in general are always going to be on the top of most of these lists. That's why it kind of gets – that's why I get tired of it in some ways, because it's like we're not tired of it, and I don't want to talk about it because I do think this year it's interesting with all of the conference movement and how that's going to change. But sometimes it almost feels like cheerleading the same people over and over again. You're like, the whole system's set up so it just feels like gross, kind of. You know what I mean? To like keep self-congratulating.
Not if you're a part of some of those schools.
No, not if you're part of them, but
I
just
know.
on the observance side of it. But it is fascinating how that is going to grow and change and become even larger of a gap in some cases. I think Arizona will have a better showing next year. There's a couple of players that could go first round for them. Colorado should be better next year. But in the grand scheme of things, you're looking at maybe the Big 12 adding like 5 to 10 guys.
Yeah.
But for the Big 10, I mean, look at what Oregon and Washington and USC, and I forget what the final
UCLA
number
had a
was,
few.
but it was like 20 players.
Yep.
So that's going to be, definitely a part of this on the other side of next year, where those draft totals are going to be almost silly to talk about because there's going to be 2 so far out in front.
I don't have the list in front of me, Paul or Craig, but Texas, remember, for the longest time went through a disappointing stretch. In 14, I don't know, they had a handful. Maybe it was they had nobody. Then, of course, a couple of years ago, nobody. But one of the things that they've been pounded for, one, is not enough players getting drafted, but also not developing their players. There's a chunk of those 11. Now, 3 of them were transfers, including A.D. Mitchell, among others. But they had a lot of players who were drafted that also were not the highly ranked 5-star guys. And so that is something that Sarkisian and his staff are doing. I think 7 of the 11 were recruited by Tom Herman. And then Sarkisian was able to mold them, and now they're stacking the cupboard every year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. By the way, every other conference is going to get what it feels like to be a libertarian or the Green Party or whatever when it comes to the draft, because they're just going to be like, oh, well, it's the Big Ten and the SEC. It's very much like the Democrats and Republicans. If you're a third-party candidate here, it's going to be, you're kind of in the wilderness.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really will be, and that's fine. Like, I've tried to kind of make it a point to throw it in there, here lately, of not everything has to be a conference bragging rights thing. Like every single thing that we talk about, it almost gets beaten to death. But there was a nice showing by Texas, certainly Michigan, as you saw, like all those top teams. We're sitting here in Waco. They had no draft picks, Dave Aranda and company. And I had somebody ask me, is that alarming? And I'm like, not necessarily this year, because they had like maybe 2 guys who had even a sniff of a chance to get drafted. So that's fine. But then when you take into account that's 1 guy total in 2 years, and then they're losing, and you look at those programs, and are any of those losing programs? No. Winning means drafting, guys getting drafted. And so from that standpoint, if you're not getting guys drafted, I do think that can become a red flag. I think it is on the verge of becoming that for Baylor, but I also don't think Dave Aranda, if they don't win games next year, is going to be around to even have a total on next year's draft, right? I mean, like he'll be the coach of whoever gets drafted, but that's not going to be like his fate will be determined by the time the next year's draft rolls around, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But winning and all of these other things that come with it, they go hand in hand. And so you see with the draft, I mean, that's the top 5 teams in the country last year. And sure enough, there they are on top of the draft board. So I think when all was said and done, and this is also, I think, alarming just in general, just looking at drafts moving forward. Alarming, not necessarily a big bad thing, but you had the SEC, if I think this is right, had 59 players drafted. That was the most. I think they've had the most, like 18 years. Pac-12 actually had the second most in their final year. They had 44. The Big Ten had 43. The Big 12 had, the ACC had 41. The Big 12 pulling up the rear at 31.
Pulling up the rear of the major conferences.
Of the Power 5.
It used to be the Power 5, yeah.
That's now not going to exist as a Power 5 anymore. So, in the last year, they pulled up the rear by a good 10 picks. But, you add 14 from the Big 12 to the SEC, and that puts them at like 17, and I think they'd get like 6 or so from the schools coming in. So, like I said at the very start, those gaps are going to widen even more with just the movement of teams. And for everyone else and the rest of the colleges, I mean, that's an incredibly small number when you start to look at it, when you take into account the non-Power 4. And I think that, kind of getting my overall point, is also the transfer portal coming into play and NIL and things like that. So, it's going to get to the point where it's at the point now where it's maybe as lopsided as ever. I think starting next year, when you look at just the conferences involved and who's getting picked because of all the various reasons that I mentioned.
No, no question. 3 of the transfers among the 11 that were drafted for Texas, they had, Robinson, the running back, came from Alabama. Ryan Watts, was it right? A.D. Mitchell from Georgia was also another one, and then also Watts. So those were players that were transfers among the 11. But the 3-star players they developed that were on the campus, Jalen Ford, I mentioned earlier. I think even Jonathan Brooks was just shy of a 4-star. To Devondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, among some others.
Well, it was fun to see Tom Herman get some credit, and then also people push back on the credit he actually deserved. I mean, the guy obviously had an eye for talent, but it was the rest of it. So you give Sark a lot of credit for development and what he's done over the last couple of years. And again, when you're winning, everything seems to be going right. And they won big this year, and they've got a lot of momentum. And now they've got the draft monkey off their back as far as, kind of being poked at and not being able to develop, or some years not having guys, and now they're right back in the thick of things.
Here are the high schools in Texas who had a player drafted. Now, on that list, there's a couple of young schools, they're Temple on the second column, 4th down, Midway, 4th column, farthest down, among a couple of others. Craig, your alma mater, Tyler Legacy, right there in the middle, used to be Lee. Those are the schools players were drafted. And the number is, making it to the NFL is 0.07 or 0.7% of the high schools in Texas had a player drafted. And those are the ones from the state of Texas. Now, Florida had theirs, Georgia had theirs, but I wanted to put up a couple because a couple of those guys, teams are in our backyard, plus Craig's alma mater with Tyler Legacy, too.
Bo Limmer from Arkansas got drafted from
absolutely.
Legacy. So, good for him. And obviously we cover Midway, so good for Katori Leveston getting his shot in the later rounds. I know Tanner Mordecai got –
he's going to be in studio here at 5:25.
Tanner Mordecai got a shot as well. So, good for those guys.
Wow, shocker. Duncanville DeSoto had guys drafted.
Oh,
yeah, shocker.
Wow, I mean, good for upstart programs like Alito.
They've won like 12 state titles. And Ryan, Jatavian Standers, among others.
And Lufkin.
Yeah.
Just
balling.
Yeah.
Garrett, let's move the 5-star. Let's move the quarterback issue to later in the next year's potential picks from the quarterback class of 2025. We'll do that for later in the show. Okay. So UAB football, Trent Dilfer, he's going all in to try to help his team. I wanted to make sure I helped pour gasoline on something that's going to happen no matter what. I might as well use my influence to help it happen faster on behalf of our players. The UAB football team has signed up with athletes.org, making them the first actual team, Division I, to publicly join a players association. This is one. This is part of revenue sharing. Yeah. This doesn't mean they're going to immediately start negotiating with UAB administration, but this was a story that came in about mid-afternoon earlier today.
Yeah, this will maybe help, grow that and speed it along. To get revenue sharing and to get it right, they're going to have to have at least a consensus as a group to negotiate on their behalf, or they're just going to have to say something that they know everybody's going to agree to. And I don't have the faith that second part would happen. They're going to say, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you guys 7% of the revenue. And they're going to go, well, why not 8 or 10 or 12? But if you don't have there's no union yet, so there's no central negotiating body on behalf of the players. I don't know. Again, I don't know how you get revenue sharing done without a union or a representation. So if it's going to happen, they might as well, keep getting people on board.
I think players get just over 50% of the NFL, right? Of course, a different deal, professional league, the union and the ownership with billions of dollars that they share. And I think the players get just over about 50 to 51%.
I mean, the word union's been thrown around quite a bit here over the last couple of years, especially in regards to what the future may look like. And so, I guess this is a step towards that for UAB at least. And, big picture, I don't know how all that looks or shapes up. I also don't know what kind of bargaining power some of these schools think they're going to have. Like, I think if it's Ohio State, that's far more notable than UAB, because how much money is really coming UAB's way. And I don't say that disrespectfully. It's just I don't think every organization and every school that has people come together is necessarily going to have anything to eat at the table, because there is no food. You know what I mean? So what can you get in the way of health services, or I saw it mentioned in there, like mental health or just regular medical care and things like that, as opposed to this idea that this is all going to lead to like big money sharing. But I'm very interested in how all of that shapes up. It's obviously going to be different for the bigger schools and for the smaller schools, but the unionization part, I don't think comes as a surprise. We've seen some of this, down and away from the larger schools. So does it trickle up? It seems like it will eventually, but yeah, I don't know what all that looks like, and it's an interesting step, but a lot of unanswered questions about all of this as a whole, whether it's UAB or just unions and college players in general.
All right, let's get to the transfer portal. Just to kind of summarize, Baylor had 3 visitors come in. They still have work to be done. This is Linus Noel from Texas Southern. Very highly thought of defensive lineman, a big dude in the middle. They need that. I saw Jim Nagy, among others, talking about him. He has committed. He's going to join us today at 4 o'clock. He'll have 1 year left. Let's go down the 3 who committed, then look back at what they might bring to the table. So he's from Texas Southern, a smaller school, but a player that was getting attention. Jaquez Evans from Western Kentucky. They now have Coach Chaney on the Baylor staff, the defensive staff. They've had a couple from Western Kentucky. They get another one. He comes in. He's an edge rusher. They need help everywhere. And also a return portal. Lorando Johnson, Snacks, I'm back. I love his tweet. I was tripping, gang. My bad. I'm back. He went to Arkansas. He now is back with Baylor. What does this do, if anything? And we'll get to the other schools with some other names in a minute.
I like that they got more depth on the defensive line. Snacks coming back is fine. I don't know how much of a difference it made last year with him being gone. I honestly don't, because they just weren't good. I mean, they just weren't good at any facet. So I don't think any one player was going to make such a huge difference, because they were bad up front on both sides. They've gotten better up front on defense. I'm not so sure that that's the case with offense. But so far defensively, and look, if they have to win games on defense this year, then that's what they're going to have to do. And hope for the best on offense while they have a new system and a quarterback that can make things happen and all that. But yeah, I like all these moves. I mean, Snacks coming back, I'm kind of indifferent about, but I think he's a net positive overall.
Yeah, I mean, they've needed help on defense since the offseason started. That was well known, and this plugs a hole, at least partially, on every level of the defense, whether it's Noel on the defensive line or another Western Kentucky addition at linebacker. They hired Jamar Chaney, who was helped coaching linebackers for Western Kentucky, so it only makes sense that they've had a little bit of an influx of Western Kentucky guys in the back end here since his arrival. So, yeah, another Hilltopper now part of this roster. And then in the back end, I mean, bringing back Snacks, he had an okay year from what I could tell at Arkansas, but he started his career here. He's familiar with the lay of the land. He's familiar with Aranda, and sometimes you got to leave to feel like you need to come back again. And Baylor's obviously where he's meant to be, more so than Arkansas, because he's back for a second go-round. So they needed help in the secondary as well. I know it gets more detailed than that. I mean, as far as his role as a corner and what that looks like, or how they use him, and same trickling on down. Like, how do you use Noel up front, and in particular, we'll learn all of those details to come, but they needed help on every level, and they've now got bodies on every level that they didn't have before yesterday. And these were guys who, in some cases, like Noel, I know as a defensive lineman, was being highly pursued by various teams, so that's a nice win for them. And they certainly, after not having really much lately to crow about, have yesterday to kind of rally the troops and get people excited. So I think it was important from that standpoint as well, just to keep the malaise away from the fan base, because that can creep up real quickly, especially when you're in the situation that they're in. So it was just nice, I think, for the program to have a little bit of excitement, a little bit of a jolt, and now they got to go and do something with it.
NC State, Kentucky, K-State, Arkansas, Maryland were just some of the schools that Noel had gotten offers from. Colorado picks up a running back and a good one. Kansas State picks up a running back and a good one. Dylan Edwards from Colorado. This was kind of the lean from the beginning. There were still thoughts there was a couple other schools. He now joins Avery Johnson, DJ Giddings, and others in that K-State backfield.
Yeah, it's a huge pickup for Kansas State. It really makes their running game quite solid. Edwards also a really good receiver out of the backfield, so which is lethal when you've got a quarterback who's going to roll out and have and they're going to run as many RPOs as they will, or just, Avery Johnson kind of making things up on the fly and having to bail out. Like, it's a really interesting weapon for them to have to go with DJ Giddens. I love the move for Kansas State to go get him. That's where he had committed there initially before he decided to go to Colorado. I know a lot of the Kansas State fans were mad, but he scores that first touchdown. They'll forget about all the negative things they said about him.
Yeah, I don't think they care now. He's there. I mean, they don't give a damn. He's a K-State Wildcat now, no matter what happens. But, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting portal story. You see this on occasion, but it's just funny how it all works out. And a loss for Dion and the Buffs, certainly what was a huge win at the time to get Dylan Edwards, is now another of just dozens of losses, it seems, that are piling up. Not necessarily losses in the big picture, but losses on the roster. So, yeah, we'll see if he can now be that guy that he was recruited to be, because we haven't really seen that yet. So to picture him where it all kind of started and where he was headed originally will be exciting, especially with all the reasons why you mentioned there, starting with Avery Johnson and just the offense that they run. There's a lot of reason for excitement of getting Dylan Edwards in that backfield and seeing what Chris Kleiman and his staff can do with all those weapons. So, yeah, that's a good deal for the Wildcats.
Scott Fritchen, who covers K-State, Dylan Edwards tells me and Avery on the same team, that's like Batman and Robin, I bawled my eyes out because I was full of joy after we signed the papers to go play at Kansas State. Pretty damn good weekend for Miami. I don't know how much of this with Damian Martinez, the Oregon State running back, and also Samuel Brown, wide receiver from the University of Houston. Manny Navarro will join us in about 20 minutes or so. They both have committed to play at Miami. They get a couple of weapons.
Yeah, those are two really good players. Sam Brown was really nice at Houston. I think that was a loss for the Cougars, but you got a coaching changeover, so you're going to lose some guys, and unfortunately that was one of those for Willie Fritz. I think they'll be fine, but I do think that's a really nice get for Miami, and he was one that when he got in the portal originally, a lot of people were like, oh, shoot, Sam Brown. So that's a good one, but certainly Damian Martinez, that was being hinted at and talked about late last week as a strong possibility, and so he makes it official, and I've raved about him plenty of times. I've covered his whole college career, or watched him and kept up with him his whole college career. He's a really nice player that definitely adds something to Miami. Now, I don't know if it adds wins in the big picture, but I think the combination of he and his new quarterback, if they don't add wins, then I would start the coaching search immediately, because there really is no excuse if you've got Damian Martinez and Cam Ward in your backfield, why that's not adding a couple of wins to your schedule. I don't know really exactly what Mario Cristobal can do that will, minus, commandeering some dominant defense out of the blue or something like that, but that certainly gives Miami a big spark that they didn't otherwise have.
Well, if you look at their roster, it's very veteran-laden right now, and that's what you need to win. Look, Cam Ward is a senior. He's been a lot of places. Now they've got Damian Martinez officially in the fold. He has been a lot of places. He's played a lot of games and made a lot of plays. The receivers now will be Sam Brown, who's a veteran guy, Jacoby George, a really good player and a senior, and Xavier Restrepo, the kind of classic. I love
him.
Yeah, the classic Miami first down, red zone, little he's not little, but annoying little.
He's a punk and he's not on your team.
Yeah, the guy you just hate. But if you're Miami, he's perfect. I mean, he is so old school Miami, and this makes them exciting again. They're really good up front on both sides of the ball. They've got good skill position. They probably don't have as much depth as they'd want to have, but at least this puts them in a position now where they're exciting again.
That's what you said in the text to us over the weekend.
It makes them exciting, makes them interesting. I think that's the thing that not only Mario Cristobal, but everybody between Larry Coker and him has been fighting was Miami used to be, for better or for worse, the most interesting team ever. And then they just became another team. And it was Miami. So
it happens. Everybody.
This makes them interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it makes them exciting for other recruits to come in and see it. And I think it makes them a threat to other teams in the ACC.
And they don't really recruit Texas hardly ever. In a roundabout way they have. It wasn't in like straight out of high school. But now all of a sudden you look up and they got a few Texas kids on that roster where normally they don't, and if they do, it's a lineman or it's a defender. They're just one of those. It's like LSU that LSU more often than not, they've got a Texas kid. It's on defense, and occasionally they'll have an offensive guy. Like Josh Williams, I think, is probably the best. But, like, their receivers are all from Louisiana. Yeah. Their quarterbacks are from wherever. And so, yeah, it's just cool to see a little Texas flavor to Miami for a guy who pays attention to those sort of things.
All right, well, speaking of Miami, Ja'Cory Brown was a quarterback there. Remember? He left. This is his meal this over the weekend as he visited UCF. That is a tomahawk veal chop. And, of course, a lobster tail, along with all of the others at the Capitol Grill in Orlando. That was over the weekend. Just a minute ago, I saw where he has committed to be a part of UCF going forward.
Well, and a highly thought of prospect coming out, but obviously didn't work out at Miami. Now he gets to go play for, no offense to you, Shannon Dawson, but a better offensive coach, an offensive coordinator in Gus Malzahn and his staff there, and sit behind KJ Jefferson, a guy with a very similar skill set and body type. And Gus is basically saying, look, if you're a 6'3" or more quarterback with a big rocket arm that can move around a little bit, Cam Newton's coach wants a word. So he's kind of figured out who he wants. Now, look, not to knock our good friend John Rice Plumlee, who was he was
picked up, right?
Picked up, yeah. But these guys could carry him around like in a little like papoose with baby Bjorn.
Yeah. I can't help but feel for the poor student athlete when I see the size of that steak and how mistreated. No, I know it's different for football
that's the
recruits.
Biggest one I've ever
I know
seen,
it's different for football recruits, but that's some of the stuff that
Put that
just
up
totally
again,
gets freaking ignored. Like the street agents and not everybody's Ja'Cory Brown getting, wined and dined to come play football there. But, that's the stuff that we just act like is not even, part of the equation, But, yeah, they well taken care of on that trip to Orlando for certain, and a really nice pickup for UCF. I think, obviously, you've got your guy in KJ Jefferson, but to set yourself up for beyond that, or if he were to get hurt, God forbid, you got a really dynamic, talented player who clearly people feel like has got something that he just hasn't been able to quite fully show yet for whatever reason. And so Gus Malzahn, if anybody, should be able to get that out of him here over the next couple seasons, and we'll see what they can do with a guy who's obviously a very talented young man. But yeah, it's the KJ Jefferson show to start off with, and you weren't expecting Ja'Cory Brown to come rolling in and start right away. So I think this works out well for everybody involved, from UCF to Brown, and we'll see, obviously down the line how much action he gets eventually, but I think on paper it's a really nice get.
All right, so this story, just wanted to read it, not the whole thing, but KSR Radio, which covers Kentucky, we got to know them during the Scott Drew coaching search, or at least that carousel for them. Penny Boone, heck of a player, running back from Louisville, was going to, it looked like Kentucky was the place. However, KSR over the weekend reporting that Boone will not transfer to Kentucky. Players now have the green light to transfer as many times. We know that. However, they still must meet certain academic requirements to become eligible at their next school, and apparently that's an issue with Kentucky. So where's he at now? He's at UCF. He's visiting UCF right now. Not sure about how the transfer credits and all that works out, but what I like, oh, yeah, there is education. And
there's
there are
classes and
academic
degrees
credits
and things.
like that.
Wow.
You just can't just go from one school to the next without going to class and attaining more credits.
And I'm sure that we'll talk about Dion and Max Olson's column here eventually. But what he did say was have a plan. Penny Boone didn't look like he had a plan here, in that – here's the thing, you want to transfer, that's all well and good, but you have to, in the middle of the semester, you have to have transferable credits. You got to make sure all that's right. And I don't think, as we push the student athlete part into a lowercase student and uppercase athlete, more and more, I don't think it's a large price to pay to just make sure that whatever classes you are taking at the university, that you are transferable when you go to other places if you want to hop around. And look, sometimes this is an oversight on an administrator's part or whatever, but these are things you have to look through. And look, if Penny Boone winds up at UCF, that's another boon for a transfer class that might wind up having Cormani McLean. Apparently, that's one of the schools who's actually reached out to him so far. They're they've been done very, very well in the portal this offseason. So if he winds up at UCF, good, more power to UCF, but still a little bit of a snafu on his part.
Should have just stuck with Louisville maybe, but then we know the story there is that apparently he wasn't running with the ones, and that was part of the reason to go back into the portal. I think anytime you see a guy enter the portal and not even play it down or make it through the spring with the team he just committed to, that's a red flag. Maybe it's the school's fault on occasion, but I just think in general that's a red flag. So to see him go in, go out, in a short amount of time like that, it's like, what the heck's going on here? Now the issue with the grade work, I'm not surprised because it just sounds like it was sort of a rushed and sort of mangled decision to begin with, and perhaps not the most well thought out. So I guess Louisville threw him for a loop, and now he's trying to recover, and obviously it's just not as simple as, hey, I'm in the portal and I'm going to go here because he can't go to Kentucky. So that would have been a nice land for the Wildcats. And I'm sure he would have loved to have gone and played in the SEC, but alas, that is not in the cards for him anymore. So, maybe a warning tale for others who attempt to do similar in regards to how they transfer and over the course of a particular semester, as he did. You need to double-check that all that's actually doable and not going to create a problem like your grades not being able to allow you to go to where you actually want to go. So, let that be a lesson for everybody out there. And if he lands at UCF, that would just add on, like y'all said, to the Knights having a really nice offseason haul.
And you wonder, those who are handling the agents, who are handling the college players, are they more focused in on the NIL part of it, or are enough of them also understanding you still needs to make progress towards a degree? And honestly, I'm not really sure that's still the case. It's an example here with Penny Boone. You wonder about with all the transfers, is that still the case? You hope the compliance at every school is doing their job.
Well, if an agent was the one to get in his ear and tell him to leave Louisville, hopefully he's got a new agent by now, because whoever that was completely screwed the pooch. Maybe in the long run they don't care because they got their money or he got his money and that's all they were after. But, you chase money. It doesn't always end the way that you want to. As a matter of fact, it can go sideways more often than not. So I think this is maybe one of those cases in the NIL era. And there's others, of course, I don't know if I'd call them, horror tales or anything like that necessarily. But this is one of those, like I said, one of those lessons to be learned for others that follow in Penny Boone's footsteps.
All right, so the chat room is going. Hit the like and subscribe button if you can. Spread the word if you don't mind. There's a lot more to get to today, including at some point today, Arena League football looks like it's about to go down again because of financial issues based on an example that was over the weekend. Congratulations to former Baylor quarterback Chris Johnson. Remember the game he had against Oklahoma State when Jarrett Stidham went out up in Stillwater? He today was named the offensive coordinator at Bryan High School, which is where he played his high school football. He was recruited by Art Briles. He played at Baylor, eventually moved on. He now is the offensive coordinator at his alma mater at Bryan High School. It was Oklahoma State. What year would that have been? 15? I think it was.
I think so.
15, because they were really good. In 15, he hit KD Cannon, I think, on a long touchdown pass. But it didn't work out because eventually he got knocked out against Texas. And also in the game, I can't remember who it was. It may have been TCU. They were up 14-0, fumbled. TCU had to run it back for a touchdown, and all hell broke loose in that game.
Yeah, they were always really high, and you couldn't doubt that staff's ability to eye talent at quarterback, particularly for their system. So they were always really high on his athleticism and his intangibles and what he could do, and he just never really broke out. That Oklahoma State game was probably his biggest moment I guess, what's the word? I'm trying to think. Replacing Jarrett Stidham. He did an admirable job. It wasn't like he was a superstar that day, but he did enough to help them get that W. And then, I was a little bit shakier after that. He never turned into the full-fledged starter. And as a matter of fact, his injury against Texas led to what would have been one of the craziest wins of all time. Baylor without a quarterback, as we would see against North Carolina in their bowl game that year. We eventually saw that on full display, but they basically trotted out that whole idea against Texas on a whim because Chris Johnson suddenly got hurt and they had nothing prepared. And so they had to go to receivers playing the Wildcat and nearly pulled the damn thing off. If not for a fumble late in that game, they probably win that game, and it's one of the greatest games, I think, coaching-wise, maybe of all time. But they came up short, and then we saw in the bowl game one of the greatest coaching jobs of all time because they actually could do it and plan for it for a few weeks and know what they were doing, and North Carolina was on the receiving end of that, and that was just one of the craziest, coolest things that I've watched. But, congrats to Chris. To be back at your alma mater, I think, has got to be a good feeling and be a really cool homecoming for somebody like him. So, that's awesome.
All right, so the couple of notes I just put up in the chat. What is a story or two from the weekend that we have not covered that you wanted to cover? Kim Coulter, longtime Cowboys fan, wanted to know why in the hell the Cowboys did not draft or even sign as an undrafted free agent running back. They got Zeke.
Partying like it's 2018 again?
God, even before that.
24. I'm trying to think. 2014.
They did sign a free agent from Mizzou who is not the starter at Mizzou, by the way. They didn't sign Cody Schrader. They didn't sign him, the starter from Mizzou. They signed
grinder, too.
The backup from Mizzou. And they didn't draft a running back because they felt so good about Zeke Elliott. And there's a phenomenon, and Craig, I know that you will share this disdain with me, on social media, which I feel the Cowboys may have fallen for, of players, like NFL players who have had a couple rough seasons, running in shorts and then being like, ooh, look who's in great shape. Okay, he will never get to run in shorts against 0 people. This is not an applicable video here.
Right.
And Zeke being one of the best offensive players on the worst offense in the NFL last year and the Patriots is not a reason to bring him back.
But, dude, he looks awesome in wind shorts on TikTok.
Yeah, in
a completely designed drill to make him look good for 15 seconds.
Yeah.
No, I said 2014. He was at Ohio State. 2016 was his rookie year, so we're partying like it's 2016 all over again. That's uninspiring. To me, I'm not a Cowboys fan, so I don't really have to groan about it too much, but I can always be a partial outside observer of them, and it's really uninspiring. I mean, I understand they're handcuffed to some extent, but I was awaiting them drafting a running back at some point in time, and they never did. And look, there's not much value in drafting running backs. I understand that, but you don't take a flyer on somebody at least and try to get somebody to come in there. So I guess they had their heart set on Zeke and this reunion, and we know he loves Dallas and vice versa, so that's cool and everything, but I just feel like you're going backwards versus going forwards. I feel like the team that you were just trotting out there 3 years ago is now, some new names and switched around, but the Dak and Zeke combination is still what you're riding with at this point in 2024. So it's strange, but I know that there are reasons as to why fans will buy into those, how heavily they decide to. But as a Cowboys fan, I'd be pissed. I would be mad that they didn't handle this differently, but, it is what it is.
Had a decent year with New England last year. Had a chance to play. 5 starts, had 5 scores, had over nearly 1,000 yards of total offense. But it's a running back position. The treads are not the same, so you're going to have to find somebody else. And maybe they feel like they have that on the roster, but Pollard is gone.
I can't knock, bringing a guy back and talking about like getting together with your ex, because we just talked about Lorando Johnson and Baylor, and he's doing that. And I don't think that's a bad move for him in the long term. But I just think for the Cowboys, the word that comes to mind, and Paul may agree with this or not, but it's just uninspiring.
It's very uninspiring.
It's just uninspiring. That's the only word I can use to describe it. And so, I dust off your, hopefully those folks had Zeke jerseys. There were a lot of them at one point in time, a lot of Zeke jerseys. To go dust those off out of the closet wherever they've been hanging and not have to buy any new ones, I suppose. So there's a benefit there. But, yeah, we'll see. And if he has a huge year, I mean, they'll gobble it up and love it because he was beloved in Dallas. But, yeah, it just feels like you're kind of turning back the clock when you should be moving forward.
All right, so there's a lot of that. There's some NFL broadcasting news that we'll get to at some point. An interesting nugget on Nebraska freshman Dylan Raiola, who he's going to work out with during the rest of the spring and also the summer. Just to know, Pop Isaacs committed to Creighton, former Texas Tech basketball player. And there we are with that. Did we miss anything? I think we pretty much covered it. It's always hard because there's so much, especially coming off the draft and the portal and what other news and notes there was. I want to say one thing before we go to the break with Manny. I don't talk NBA hardly ever. Ever. But did anyone see Kyrie Irving's shot that he made in the loss to the Clippers? That was just insane how long he hung in the air and somehow got it off. Did anyone see that?
Yeah.
He was unbelievable yesterday. 40 points. Mavericks had a 31-point deficit, came back, took the lead. Kyrie was amazing. A guy that's taken a lot of heat. He's a great player. James Harden is somebody that's known to kind of shrink when it comes to the pressure, scores a lot of points, all-star, all that. He was fantastic for the Clippers down the stretch and helping them come back and take the lead, hitting one shot after another. And one of the concerns was, why didn't the Mavericks change up how they were guarding him? Because he made them pay.
Yeah, I mean, there was that. They also have very questionable decision-making on how they decided to guard him. I think J.J. Redick's got a nice lengthy segment that he talked about or questioned what the Mavericks are doing. And I'm like you, I'm not a huge NBA, but I do care about the Mavericks. I do, and I will follow them no matter what else is going on. And consider me one of those that eats my – I mean, I never went out on the – I don't want to pretend like I was like a Stephen A. Smith type of guy or a Skip Bayless type of guy. I was like going after Kyrie or whatever, but I was somebody who just saw headlines about him and, didn't know much, didn't pay close enough attention other than just what you read. And that's definitely one of those examples of like, man, you got to actually kind of watch somebody and listen to them and not just take what the New York Post has to say about somebody, for example. And he is not always right or wasn't always right, but I do think he's a much different person. And I'm not saying that because he's in a Dallas uniform, but just based on the way he talks now, he's grown up. And I think that's a big part of maybe what rubbed people the wrong way previously. And I get it, like flat earth and some of that's like he was asking to be criticized, but he's not at all the team cancer that you were scared of walking into Dallas. He's been far from that. He's been great. And, yeah, when you cut out all the BS and the outside noise and you just watch him, he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, dribblers of all time. He's got crazy hang time. He's crazy creative. And, I'm pissed they lost, but he's always fun to watch.
When we come back, Manny Navarro from theathletic.com, he will join us at just after 4. We will have Linus Noel, who committed a transfer from down in Houston to play for Baylor, and Matt Brown from Extra Points, and got some good news for you if you're an EA Sports college football fan. He's got some nuggets on that. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, LowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, used to be. 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. Your energy may not be the same. You might be lethargic. You might even find yourself in the middle of the day just sluggish. That could be your low testosterone. Sex drive, low testosterone could be the problem there. And even your focus, which could also come back with your energy, could be an issue too. Those are some of the symptoms. If you have any of them, Dr. Kent Petty can try to help you out he wants to help you out. Contact him at pettycliniclowt.com. They'll set you up to get your blood work. He'll get the results. They'll take care of that appointment, by the way. And if your testosterone level is too low, he will take you into a program or give you the option to enter a program so you can increase your testosterone level so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be at pettycliniclowt.com.
It's Dodge Power Shot Days at Allen Samuels in Waco, where the thrill of the drive meets unbeatable savings. Feel the adrenaline as you conquer the road in a 2023 Dodge Durango RT, now with jaw-dropping $12,500 off. Or unleash the power of the 2023 Dodge Charger Challenger RT, now available with remarkable $11,000 off. Feel the rush of pure performance and style as you dominate the urban jungle. Don't miss your chance to experience the thrill of Dodge Power Shot Days. Hurry in and claim these incredible savings before they're gone. Come by and let's be friends.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Manny Navarro covers Miami for The Athletic. He's been with us many times, and he is today. Pretty good weekend for the Hurricanes. Damian Martinez, and also the pickup, of course, another transfer with Samuel Brown from Houston. Manny, thanks for your time with Craig and Paul. David Smoak. Now they got more talent. Can they do something with it?
That's the golden question, right? I mean, that's been Miami's problem for many years. People say, well, they recruited at a high level, but what do they actually do on the field? They've had one 10-win season in 20 years, and now's the time for Mario Cristobal to deliver. It's year 3. This is completely his roster. He's got to go out and win games.
Manny, this certainly makes them one of the things they've lost over the years is they used to have this unbelievable swagger, and they were very interesting. And just between Larry Coker and now, they haven't had those guys, those players, those personalities that gave the U its flair that it used to have. But now with Cam Ward and Brown and Martinez and Restrepo and George all coming back, and not to mention the talent they have up front on either side of the ball, this is starting to feel, and I don't want to get out over my skis, but like an old school Miami roster, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly has the firepower of the offensive side, and I think most people who got a chance to watch Cam Ward up close this spring and see, some of the passes he was making to those receivers, some of the catches those guys were making, you're like, wow, this is about as exciting an offense as we've seen in a long time down here. And I don't know how many of those guys will end up being Pro Bowlers and go on to be first round picks, but I certainly think from a college perspective, it's their best team since they joined the ACC in my mind, at least on the offensive side of the football. You mentioned guys on defense. Ruben Bain obviously was the ACC's Defensive Rookie of the Year last year, a guy that really stands out. And I think they expect to be better on the defensive side of the ball, but I still think there's some holes in the secondary, some guys that they've got to replace. So we'll see. But in the long run, I mean, this is the most talented team I think they've put on paper since they joined the ACC.
Manny, with Samuel Brown and Damian Martinez, those being two of the newer additions now offensively, what do both look like in terms of how they fit into the puzzle that Cristobal's putting together, expectations as far as what Miami needs from guys like that? And I know there's other players in the mix, but when you eye those two, what's kind of the, I guess, the general information on both and how they fit in?
Yeah, I mean, both big-time production guys. Restrepo's, I think, only the sixth receiver in Miami history to have 1,000 yards in a season. So, a guy that's just been old, reliable, especially on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. He just knows where to be, how to get the first down, how to move the chains. I think Sam Brown, being familiar with Shannon Dawson's offense, playing with him at Houston, just is the right kind of fit to sort of complement Restrepo. You mentioned Jacoby George earlier. He was a big play guy. You go back to that Texas A&M game, you go back to the Florida State game. He had long touchdown catches down the field. Just another explosive guy. And somebody they're really excited about is Isaiah Horton, who's a third-year sophomore, a guy that's expected to replace Colby Young, who moved on to Georgia, by the way, as the big outside threat. So they've got four guys that they feel are really, really good, plus some young guys behind them. This is as loaded a receiver room I think they've had in a long time.
What are they missing?
I think probably another safety and a cornerback. They just picked up Dione Hill from Marshall, who played in Lance Guidry's system a couple years ago, is familiar with their defensive backs coach. So I think he's going to fit in fine. It's going to allow some guys to shift around in the secondary, but they just don't have a ton of snaps in terms of experience in the secondary. So it's one of those things where if you have a great pass rush, if Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor, who missed most of last season, are playing at a really, really high level, and you've got some other guys on the interior, some transfers that came over, they're going to help sort of solidify the run defense, then I think you're fine. But if they have trouble getting to the quarterback, there could be some games where they get picked apart in the secondary.
Do you think that these additions make them a legit threat to challenge to play the ACC title game?
Yeah, I think no question. I think right now on paper, you size everybody up and you say Florida State and Miami are probably the two best teams. I know Clemson has always been there, has always been a threat. I think Louisville, obviously what they did last year, you have to consider the job Jeff Fromm did, that he'll be able to get his team back in position to contend. But I think on paper, you just size up the rosters and you say Miami and Florida State have the two best teams on paper. Of course, we've seen it many times before, right? We've heard it many times before that those two teams are supposed to be dominating the ACC, and Florida State's the only one that's kind of risen back to that level. So we'll see. But I think on paper, I think Miami and Florida State are the two best.
Damian Martinez is obviously just a great pickup in general, talent-wise, but how much of an important need was it to grab another running back and have somebody who's as proven as a guy like him is?
Oh, huge. I mean, you look at Mark Fletcher. Mario Cristobal was really in love with that kid last year. He's coming on strong towards the end of the season as a freshman, and then of course, hurts his foot and ankle pretty badly in the pinstripe rule. And they liked what they got from A.J. Allen, the transfer from Nebraska a year before, and they thought he'd be a nice sort of complementary back to Fletcher. But both of them missed the spring with injuries, and so you needed a guy that you said going into August 31st in Gainesville that, hey, we've got a number one guy, a guy that we really know is healthy, that's coming off a great season, that's got experience. We can make him the number one guy. We can make David Martinez that guy, and then sprinkle in Fletcher, sprinkle in A.J. Allen, and really like what we've got in terms of ball carriers.
Manny, Cam Ward is obviously a great pickup and was really good at Incarnate Word and then went on to be pretty damn good at Washington State as well. But there hasn't been a lot of wins. His win-loss record Of course, Incarnate Word, a smaller school that's brand new in some ways, and then Washington State had the nice start and didn't finish. Is there anything to that at all that he's talked about himself since he's arrived?
Well, first of all, I don't know that he's had an offensive line as good as the one he's going to have blocking for him here at Miami. I think that's going to help him out tremendously. I mean, look, he's had, I think, 44 fumbles in his career between Incarnate Word and Washington State. Hasn't lost all of them, but the ball certainly sports free a whole lot. And I think that's something that Shannon Dawson and Cam Ward are obviously aware of. They know that has to sort of improve here in this one final shot to impress NFL scouts. So I think he's highly motivated. I think he's highly driven. I think he's got the best talent around him that he's ever had. So, and he's playing in a conference, quite frankly, where there's not a whole lot of other elite squads that you really got to be afraid of. So I think this is a huge opportunity for Cam Ward to really impress NFL scouts and maybe even win the Conference Player of the Year. And who knows what else after that.
How do you think this has helped their high school recruiting when you've got guys like that have this experience that are going to make Miami that much more fun to watch and play for?
Well, I think, Mario's put together back-to-back top 7 ranked recruiting classes since he got here. So he's always going to recruit really, really well. And the NIL collective here is obviously top-notch. Everybody thought when John Ruiz sort of disappeared into the background that they were going to fall apart. That hasn't been the case. So I think from a recruiting perspective, it's time to win, right? I think these recruits have heard about what Mario's been building. They knew he was flipping the roster, but you got to see results eventually. And I think this is the year where he's got to have some results so that some of these kids see it and can believe it and say, okay, everything he's been talking about here for the last 2 or 3 years is real. And so they got to deliver on the field. And I think once they do that, I think you'll see another top 5, top 7 recruiting class from Miami and maybe even, some of these superstar quarterbacks, especially in the 2026 class. There's a lot of them here in the state of Florida. I think that's where you might see some buy-in from some guys that maybe would have looked another way. But we'll see. We'll see going forward if they can match the hype this season.
Manny, off topic a bit. Off the field, there's obviously a lot of noise surrounding the ACC right now, especially out of Tallahassee and Clemson, South Carolina. Miami is obviously in the ACC and is going to be affected if something were to happen one way or the other. What's kind of the talk around the program and I guess just sort of the interest level of those observing, and just where do you see Miami in this big picture as far as all of the stuff going on right now with the ACC?
Well, they're being good troopers right now. They're keeping their mouths shut and letting Florida State and Clemson fight the legal battles and pay all those legal costs. But I think they're certainly watching and observing what's going on. And, I think from Miami's perspective, they feel like they could be a fit down the road for the Big Ten. Being an AAU accredited school just happened within the last year or so. So I think from an academic fit, academics have always been really important to the higher ups at Miami. And I think, when you sort of look ahead and project and say, well, what happens if this really becomes a power 2 and the ACC goes away and the Big 12 is kind of just swimming by itself out there in the ocean, trying to save face. I think that's the next jump for Miami. Whether or not they get there, how long it takes, I have no idea. But I certainly know that they're not just sitting on their hands. They're certainly watching with a close eye what's happening in Florida State and Clemson. And I think they're very interested to see what happens and if this really goes to court or if it just sort of gets stuck in the mud and then actually a negotiation is worked out between Florida State, Clemson, and the league, and if they're just sort of released. But I think if something happens to the grant of rights, Miami will certainly be ready to pounce and leave and go somewhere else.
Final thing from me, Ja'Cory Brown ends up going to UCF. We got a lot of UCF listeners. I just wonder if you could pass along what your thoughts are on that fit for him and what kind of a player the Knights are getting now down there in Orlando, or up there in Orlando.
Yeah, I think Ja'Cory, I was always really impressed with Ja'Cory and his skill set, and I think he's just a guy that needs to be in the right system. I think what Gus Malzahn runs really is built for a guy like Ja'Cory Brown, not necessarily what Shannon Dawson does down here. So I thought it was a perfect fit. UCF was the first school I thought of when Ja'Cory announced he was going in the portal, and so to me it just seems like a perfect fit. Former Miami running backs coach Tim Harris, a South Florida native, is up there at UCF now again. He went back to UCF after coming back to Miami for a year. And offensive coordinator up there for the Knights. So it just made all the logical sense that Ja'Cory would go there. And I think as soon as we see what happens with KJ Jefferson in the offense this year, I think Ja'Cory is perfectly placed to take over in 25.
Hey, Manny, great stuff. Thank you as always. Manny Navarro from theathletic.com covers Miami. Cam Ward, his second year at Incarnate Word, they were 10-3 and put up huge numbers. Washington State the last 2 years, and now with the Hurricanes and also Mario Cristobal in what is a place that is thirsty to win. Another one of those semi-blue bloods. Their, of course, success all started back in the early 80s when they won the national title with Snellenberger. Then Jimmy Johnson, Dennis Erickson, and Larry Coker, the 2001 team that might have been the best one of all time. When we come back, the young man, Linus Noel, who is with us because he committed to Baylor yesterday. One of 3 players who visited Waco to meet with Dave Aranda and his staff as they try to patch some holes in the lineup and also maybe add some players who make a difference. That's next. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com, state-of-the-art imaging machine, great Texan specialist, a mission statement that is for you. And I know that people want to discuss customer service, and a lot of businesses actually come through with that. Ideal MRI is trying to do 2 things for you specifically. 1, find out when your doctor wants to know what is the pain that you're having in a certain part of your body. Let's find out what it is, and they will do that with their, again, state-of-the-art imaging machine. Is it your hip? Is it your back? Is that tied together? Your knee? Is it something else? Your shoulder? They will find it. State-of-the-art technology, imaging machine, and great Texan specialists. Plus, here's another great part of it, $497 or less when the average MRI is more than twice that cost, nearly 3 times that cost. $497 and get what you need when it comes to finding out what muscle, ligament, or something else is bothering you when it shuts you down. You can't function. You can't sleep. You toss and turn. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace just off I-35 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Carry On Solutions is a full-service IT management service provider and provides professional services for businesses servicing clients in the U.S. and globally. They are authorized partners with Microsoft, Quest, Veeam, NetApp, HP Enterprise, and Cisco Duo. Whether you are outsourcing IT services, merging companies, or wanting to tackle cybersecurity challenges, contact Carry On Solutions. We are IT. Call or email Dave at 832-437-0138 or sales@Carry On Solutions. That's CARRION Solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Here we go, 365 Sports, the 4 o'clock hour, loaded up. And we start with Linus Noel III, young man from Texas Southern, defensive lineman who committed to Baylor, among 3 overall players who committed yesterday evening to Dave Aranda and company. Linus with us with Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and David Smoak. Linus, thanks for your time. So give me your thoughts or your reflection and all that you learned over the weekend and eventually the decision to commit to Dave Aranda.
My decision was based off of, who was going to treat me the best, who wasn't going to see me as a number and seeing me as a person. And that's what Coach Aranda talked about us heavily. Like, he sees us players as people, to get to know us and we're one as a family. So having that conversation with Coach Aranda, it was big because, that's what I was looking for.
Linus, you jump up from Texas Southern into Baylor. Did you feel in your first wave of recruitment that you were missed? And how much better of a player did you become at Texas Southern?
Yes, sir. I definitely did feel like my opportunity was messed up and out of high school because of the big pandemic that happened behind COVID-19. Camps, offers, visits, all were taken away from that 21 class because they gave guys an extra year of football. So, I ended up having to start my career off at Nicholls State, which was a blessing. Played 2 seasons there, which built my character up to transfer here to Texas Southern. And had a really great season here at Texas Southern and gave me the opportunity to, transfer again and were able to get these Power 5 offers and make a wonderful decision to stay in Waco, Texas.
Linus, I think that sometimes we all just kind of move on from COVID and everything that happened back then, and we all just kind of, hurried to get back to normal, but we sometimes forget just what a mess that was for people like yourself going through that time period and trying to deal with getting to a college and getting attention, all that. Just what was that time period like, and how did it help form who you are here a few years later?
Oh, so it definitely was, a drive. It was some hard work put into it. During that COVID lockdown, because there were no more visits and camps and stuff like that. We was forced to go to parks and make videos and stuff to send out to coaches. I remember coaches asking me to take a picture next to a door frame just to see how tall I was, to send pictures of inches of my hands and stuff like that. So yeah, it was definitely a tough process. And then at that scholarship, it wasn't a lot of scholarship money around. That's why I said it was a blessing to even get into Nicholls State, because I know a lot of guys that missed the opportunity just to get in college football behind the COVID protocol. So yeah, it was definitely tough, and it definitely shows in work ethic to make it and make it where I'm at now.
Nicholls State,
glory to God.
Nicholls State, Texas Southern, now Baylor. What would you say have the last 4 or so years been like with all of what's changed with COVID, with the transfer portal, with NIL, with the all of that has just been all at one time?
So I think NIL was a great opportunity for guys. It really helps us because college football is basically like a job, and anybody can vouch for me on that play college football or that's in the program.
it's a lot, So with those changes, I'm all for it. When it came to COVID, that's out of my hand. Nobody seen that coming. I feel like we just did what was best. So, I can't, I don't have any grudges behind it. COVID is part of me and what made me who I am today. So, you can't really talk too much about the past, because the past is the past. You know what I'm saying?
Baylor desperately, and I don't know, that may not be the right word, but there's a reason why you were on campus. They need a big body inside. What did they tell you about all that?
They run a 3-4 defense, which is a defense that I've been in for many years. That my film showed that I was very comfortable with. So I plan on coming in and just being there with the guys. Having that driven base to win. I came here to win, and talking to the other guys on the team, I know everybody else wants to win, so I feel like it's going to be a perfect fit.
Is it, even though I know it's annoying, is it an honor to be double teamed?
Yes, it is very honored to be double teamed, because that just tells me that I'm a key player in the defense, or a guy that needs to be blocked. And with that, especially with the defense that we're running, if I'm getting double teamed, that means we're leaving the linebacker wide open. So it is an honor. Getting one-on-ones is very disrespectful. So we don't take that lightly.
Richard Carr Motors, Baylor Bear Hotline, Baylor's Linus Noel III, who's now with us, transferring in from Texas Southern to play for Dave Arend.
Linus, you're from a great football state there in Louisiana, maybe pound for pound the best state in the country for talent. But how did your football journey start? Who put the ball in your hands, so to speak, and how'd you get into the game to begin with?
So all that glory goes to my dad. My dad was a big aspiration to me. He played football, so he taught me everything he knew. I started playing football at 5 years old, and it really started from there. Playing park ball with your friends. You get to find the love in the game, and from that time, I just got better and better. And as a kid, when you're getting shown love behind something that you like to do, I just felt like I could take it further than where I was at. And, that's kind of what I did. So, started in Homer, Louisiana with the Village East Seminoles. From then, I played travel ball with the Homer Hawks. And after that, I was able to play at John Curtis, starting from the 8th grade. I started high school ball for John Curtis my sophomore year, but I played for them from 8th grade to 12th grade. After I graduated from high school, went to play for Nichols for 2 seasons, and then transferred from there with the Texas Southern, and now I'm here.
All right, so you mentioned John Curtis. They only have 28 state championships in Louisiana. So is that in your blood? I know you got a piece of one of those too when you played there. I bet almost everybody, by the time they take 4 years at John Curtis, gets a chance to win a state title.
Yes, sir. It's not too many classes that don't have a ring when it comes to John Curtis. John Curtis is a powerhouse coming out of Louisiana, and that's a big name, and I'm glad that I'm connected to that name, because it speaks character. Anybody knows that if you come out of John Curtis, you're gonna get a hardworking player that do what's right. Well coached, disciplined. So being connected to that name is great. I know you've seen he has the most high school wins in high school history. So that's a great resume. He's connected to so many people, so many different coaches. So it was a blessing being coached by a great man like that.
So how much or when did you learn the connection between Baylor strength and conditioning coach Vic Valoria, who is a John Curtis High School graduate? I know it's been a long time for him. He'll hate me when I say that. But did you know that connection? Is that kind of also what brought you guys together?
So yes, I did know about that connection, but I never knew the strength conditioning coach. So, yeah, once I finally met him in person, I did tell him that I knew about him. But yeah, it's a lot of other coaches that's also connected with me as well. It not necessarily with the John Curtis situation, but just knowing other coaches that coach me as well. So that whole program has good words out of me.
All right, you're from New Orleans. You build us your perfect Cajun meal.
Okay. If I had to build you perfect Cajun meal, I'll give you my favorite meal.
Okay.
I say the perfect Cajun meal from New Orleans, hands down, crawfish. A crawfish boil. You got crawfish, potatoes, corn, turkey neck. A regular crawfish boil. But my favorite meal personally would be my mama's baked macaroni with my dad's honey baked ham and stuffed bell peppers.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that how
it's a feast? It'll put you up. It'll put you up for sure.
Is that what turned you into a nose tackle? All of that right there?
Hey man, yeah. It'll turn me a little bit more than a nose tackle. I gotta work that. I gotta work that off after I eat that. Yeah.
Well, that's what Vic Valoria's there for now, right? The rest of the offseason when you arrive on campus. So you were here. What is your schedule to come back to Waco? When do you get back here?
So that information I don't know exactly. It's either going to be the beginning of June or the end of May.
Okay.
But I don't have all that information just yet.
Well, what was the story or something in particular other than just talking about coming to play at Baylor with the staff or other players? I know that they also picked up Evans, who's coming in from Western Kentucky, an edge rusher. Obviously, Snacks Johnson, who played at Baylor, went to Arkansas. He made the decision last night. Did you guys as a threesome bond much, or what was your favorite time in Waco, Texas?
I say my favorite time in Waco, Texas was just to probably meeting everybody, talking to all the coaches, seeing how they feel about me and how I was going to fit in the defense. That was my favorite because that was the most important to me. Coming from where I came from, I already knew going into this visit, everything was going to be better than where I came from. When it comes down to what they had, the resources, the facilities, all that, I already expected that it was going to be better than where I came from. So that really wasn't the most important part. The most important part to me was talking to all the coaches and figuring out what was my best fit and how they seen I was going to fit into the team. On your other question with Snacks and
Jaquez Evans.
Yeah, we didn't. I mean, we talked a little bit. It wasn't no, real relationship. But I'm more than sure that once we get into the team and we build that relationship, we're gonna be great for him.
I heard you had a great personality. You can tell just on the 15 minutes we've had you on the show. Linus Noel III, coming in from Texas Southern, defensive lineman, will be playing at Baylor and arriving at some point in the next month or so, depending on the schedule with that. Linus, thanks for your time. What do you get to do now? You get to you're going to go home and have some nice meal. What's next for you? Finish up at Texas Southern. What's the next month for you like?
This next week I'll be taking my last exam at Texas Southern, and I'll be moving out. But next step is grinding, getting to work, getting right for this upcoming season. That's what's most important to me right now. Is bringing helping this team bring a championship to Waco, Texas.
All right.
So we getting to work.
Thank you for your time, Linus Noel III from Texas Southern. Nicholls State, played at Homa at John Curtis High School, one of the great names in high school football around the country, with 28 state championships in a very competitive state where they have high level of football. Speaking of which, he's talking about a crawfish boil, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you once again to Richard Carr for sponsoring this and every Baylor segment on the Richard Carr Baylor Bear Hotline.
We appreciate that. He mentioned, by the way, Matt Brown from Extra Points got some bunch of good stuff here in the next segment. He mentioned a crawfish boil. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. They have 30-pound sacks of live crawfish. And the time, or I guess the price, which at one point was like $4.90 pound, now down in the lower $3 a pound. Not quite $3, but getting lower and lower as the season goes on. Corn, potatoes, what you want with shrimp and crawfish, they have it. Waco Custom Marketplace also has a full-service butcher shop and a bakery and all the knickknacks you need along the way, from canned goods to even pasta, chips, marinade, seasoning, cold beer and wine when you walk into the door off the right side if you want that, and soft drinks too. It's Waco Custom Marketplace. Order the 30-pound sacks, how many you want, of live crawfish by Wednesday at 6. Pick it up anytime after Friday at 4 or sometime when they're open on Saturday. Waco Custom Marketplace for the crawfish boil in you, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Cars priced right, both day and night. At Richard Carr in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Carr in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Carr in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Carr in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Here we go. Matt Brown, Extra Points, his newsletter. Here's what I know about the EA Sports College Football 25 cover athletes and much more. And Matt Brown joins us, Craig, Paul, and Smokey on 365 Sports. So what do you know about the cover athletes, Matt Brown? Thanks for your time, by the way.
It's my pleasure. I mean, what I know is I know who's on the cover, but I did agree to an embargo, so I can't actually say that without getting in big trouble with EA. But I can share some things that I think might help narrow down the options. What I can share is that there are multiple cover athletes because there are multiple editions of the game, as has become pretty common now with AAA video game titles. Not games that like functionally differ in gameplay, but you can usually pay a more expensive version and get extra Ultimate Team points or extra downloadable uniforms, that kind of thing. I can tell you that all of the cover athletes are also going to be current Power Conference starting college football athletes, which is something that's never been done with the video game series because, of course, previously you couldn't pay the guys that were actually still playing. Historically, the cover athlete was somebody whose eligibility had been completed. All three or four, or the several athletes here are going to be, current, guys who are coming into this year. And they're also all different positions. So you're not going to have 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks. There's going to be one quarterback. And then there'll be different position groups from across some of these other major conferences. So, you have something to look forward to here for some big names coming into this season, gracing the cover of the video game.
Matt, I think, and you don't know this, most people don't, I think I am responsible personally for EA Sports really hitting this embargo hard because when RG3 was on the cover, I got a tip that he was on the cover and ran with it, and nobody told me not to embargo it, and they got really mad at me for about 24 hours. And then we worked everything out, but no one told me, so I broke that story nationally. They were PO'd, so yep. I might be responsible for that embargo.
Yeah, I did not know that. I remember when I reached out to their comms team after I'd gotten this confirmed from 4 other people, some at the company, some in the industry. I was like, hey, kind of give you a heads up. Do you have any comment? I'm going to run this. And like, if you do this, if you get out this far ahead of our official release, we are never going to pick up your calls again. You're going to be dead to us. I'm like, okay. Let's figure something out here because they spent a lot of money into the cover release and the marketing push behind this. They want to do it on their terms. I would look and say, hey, listen, you're the leading story now and on social media and in sports radio for half the country. I mean, you're welcome, but we'll see what they end up saying.
Matt, how much of just a groundswell of interest have you felt in covering this story from basically the moment we found out that the video game was coming back?
Yeah, it's been this kind of surreal thing, right? Because video games aren't my bread and butter beat. I write mostly about money and about legal issues and realignment and all this back end stuff. And a lot of that's very popular with, really inside baseball kind of people. I have a lot of athletic directors and commissioners that read my newsletter. But then when you write about the video game, which I got into from, covering the licensing world, that's every fan cares very deeply about this. So I have thousands of readers, I think, at this point, who don't care about anything else I write other than this game. And for them, I'm happy to serve that need. I love video games too. I hope many of them stick around and read other things that I produce, and maybe they learn something and find something else that interests them.
Matt, there's a lot more to get to, including what you have in your newsletter. But I saw you are. Is that right? The general manager of the Atlanta Falcons?
Yeah, people forget this, but I do moonlight, in the NFL front office world, and it seems like social media wasn't super excited about my first round draft pick.
No,
I think Penix will do great. No, I felt bad. I feel like I have a lot of Atlanta Falcons fans in my world, and that's just not a particularly well run franchise. I hope it all works out for the best for them.
All right, one other note. Today, the story about UAB, Trent Dilfer, Athletes Org. We've seen what they're going on up in Dartmouth, and now with this. How is this kind of just a little story, or do you think this is much bigger of a story?
I think the athletes.org thing is a little, a smaller story than Dartmouth for now, but it could potentially become bigger. And I'm not shocked that this happened at UAB. Jim Cavale's is a Birmingham guy, right? He's I think he still lives there. He's got ties to the university. And this is kind of unique because, unlike Dartmouth and unlike Northwestern, unlike other places, Trent Dilfer was advocating for this. He was recommending it for his players. And what I think is important to recognize here is athletes.org, which has a lot of chapters in the college basketball world as well. I know they have a couple of ACC programs and some other power programs signed up there. It's not a union. It could potentially become one later on. What they're hoping to do is just get a bunch of players signed up and share medical information and share legal information, NIL information, and get them talking. So then they have an organization that can negotiate or become a union or bargain whenever we get to that point. And that I actually think is very important, because when the court system says revenue has to be shared with athletes, or athletes are employees, there has to be somebody at the other side of the table to talk about revenue distribution. There has to be some kind of group that's there to represent the athletes. And that could be collectives. That could be a labor union. That could be this organization that the athletes.org is building. It could be something else. There's pluses and minuses to all of those. I think it's a super important story. And just for me personally, I think the most important thing is that the athletes themselves pick that group and that organization. It's one. I don't think it's fair for me, the 37-year-old guy with a wife and kids and mortgage and knee pain and doesn't have any skin in the game, to tell people exactly what kind of organization they should be doing, because the choice doesn't impact me. But it could, very significantly impact college athletes now. And I just hope that it isn't a lawyer or some third party or a coach or management pushing that choice on them, but that they decide what they want. And then whatever that is, that's great. That's what you hope for, I think, with these kind of organizations.
Honestly, without organizations, how would they even negotiate future revenue sharing? Because it's not like you can just go to each individual athlete and ask them. That's impossible.
And honestly, I think that's a really big risk from all of this here. Like my fear on behalf of college athletes, so let's say in a year or two, there's some major court changes here, and large groups of athletes are determined to be employees, or there's a settlement in the House case. Power conferences, decide that they're going to share some semblance of broadcast revenue or of other athletic department revenue with athletes, which is great. But you're right. Without an organization, my concern is that Greg Sankey might just pick somebody, right? Or the athletic directors will get together and they'll pick somebody. And if you have a labor negotiation, which is fundamentally what a lot of these things are here, and neither side is picked really responsive to the athletes, what's going to happen is the athletes are going to get screwed. And you might, maybe you have somebody who's well-meaning and is going to try, but without it being picked and supported by the athletes themselves, I think there's a real risk you end up with a deal that's worse than what you have right now, which is why I think it's very important, whether it's a union or a trade organization or just a group of people together like a collective or like what athletes.org is. I think it's very important for athletes to be talking with each other about what is important to them and what they should be pushing for, because I can't make that decision for them. Dennis Dodd can't make that decision for them, or any other reporter or well-meaning activist. That's something that has to come from them, because only they know what's most important to them in their lives right now.
Matt, there was a story over the weekend. Penny Boone, who is the running back at Louisville, who entered the portal, looked like Kentucky was a match. Now he's at UCF visiting them, and there might have been this thing called progress towards a degree with transferable credits involved. Do you think a lot of people or even players sometimes forget that's still a part of the mix here, and you just get bounced from one school to the next?
Unquestionably. And I tweeted this. I deeply think this is part of the issue, is that not only do athletes forget, but their agents forget, because we have so many people that are representing college athletes now who are like 24 or who are new to the agent space, or they just don't understand how college works, right? Most big-time college football players and college basketball players, they're not majoring in astrophysics. They're not majoring in underwater marine biology, chemistry, right? A lot of them are business, sports management, comm majors, the kind of things that you're going to find at most schools. But even if you're transferring in-state, credits are not a one-to-one automatically transferable thing, especially if you're not taking full course loads during football season, or if you had some remedial coursework coming in. The more that you transfer, the harder it is to not only be academically eligible, that fall, but to be progressing towards finishing a degree in 4 or 5 years. And the more schools that you play for, the harder it is to get admitted anywhere else, and the harder it is to end up actually getting a degree. There's going to be some places, and I don't mean this pejoratively, just a reflection of what kind of school they are, where it's going to be a little bit easier to get admitted if you're on your third or fourth school. A place like Marshall, I think, would be an example there, and that's kind of the role that they've played historically. And, a place like Michigan or Stanford or North Carolina is going to be harder. But as playing for 3 or 4 schools becomes more and more common, that's going to be a real challenge. And they're going to find more stories of athletes where the collective's on board and the coach is on board and the athlete's on board and the admissions department says no, because none of your credits line up. And that's something that I think people close to athletes really need to consider if you want to hit the transfer portal after a little adversity, or you want to maximize, your cash after that first year, because every time you change schools, there's some significant opportunity costs, and academics would be one of those.
Matt Brown, publisher of Extra Points, with us, and has joined us many times. It's always an enlightening segment with us on a lot of things college athletics.
What do you make of the just spinning revolving door of people coming in and out of Colorado?
It's a really good question, right? And I've been trying to think about this, because I suspect that Colorado made some roster management decisions with the assumption that people would not be able to as easily leave as they were when they joined. And then once NCAA transfer, legislation became even more liberalized after they lost the court case, I think you had a lot of players who realized, hey, actually coming here was pretty hard. Or maybe I don't love this culture, and it was just as easy for me to kind of come in as it will be for me to leave. And I think this coaching staff probably pushed a couple of those players. What is fascinating and also I think troubling to look at where Colorado is right now is we saw last year their roster building approach didn't really work. And I think one of the biggest reasons why it didn't work is there's just not enough high-level offensive and defensive line talent typically in the transfer portal to build your roster exclusively or almost exclusively, from that area. You can get skill position talent there, but you need continuity, and there's generally not enough really high-level conference guys in that group. And now they're trying to do that again. The history, such as it is in this short world here, doesn't really make you think that Colorado will suddenly hit a switch and win 9-10 games next year. Like, the problem with that roster before is that they were built like a really good 7-on-7 team. And I don't know if they've gotten that much better right now. My takeaway here is I don't think you can build a championship team by basically deciding not to recruit high school kids, which is what Deion Sanders and what Colorado is doing right now. It's interesting for us because nobody else is doing it that way, but there's a reason nobody else is doing it that way. That it doesn't really work.
You mentioned continuity, and I've had many coaches tell me the offensive line, you could plug somebody here, plug somebody there, but those guys have to be around each other from the offseason, weight room, pushing weights on a field, whatever, that's really one position, and they have to have some unbelievable chemistry, camaraderie, and continuity. I never thought of it that way till you brought that back up again.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't think I really appreciated until I got on this beat too and began to have some of those same kind of conversations, because building a really good offense isn't like to kind of take this full circle, like a video game where you just plug in the biggest numbers you can on the spreadsheet. You can have a quarterback and wide receiver who have exceptional timing and chemistry perform better than maybe you plug in a guy that's a little bit faster or a little bit shiftier, but doesn't have that same number of reps. And I've heard that same thing about linemen. And it's not just how you play with each other, but also the time it takes to figure out how to play within a particular system, how you develop within a program, how you get taught technique, because high school offensive line coaching is not really as good as what you're going to find at the collegiate level. And so you have people, even in the portal, that are a little bit technically raw. It's just very hard to do. And when you look at teams that I think compete at a championship level right now, they're going to go try to find another right guard in the portal. Sure. You can never have too many offensive linemen, but the best guys are usually people that have been in the program for 2 or 3 years, so they can grow physically, mentally, and kind of culturally with everybody else.
Matt Brown with us, and I know you saw this article, the Max Olson article about what happened and where are all of the 50-plus guys that used to be at Colorado until Dion arrived. You've been busy most of the day, but if you haven't read it, it's just tremendous, the background they did on that.
It's a great story, and I think it's a really important reminder that coaching is still a relationships and people business. And the athletes that we talk about and we write about and we obsess over are not just, guys on a spreadsheet with 3 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 stars next to them, but they're teenagers or they're 20-year-olds and they're human beings. They have hopes and desires and feelings. And what I think rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and candidly, me too, about this era of Colorado football isn't so much that guys are run off. People have been, Bear Bryant ran people off. People have been running people off as long as we've had scholarship limits. And it was pretty common, right? That's why guys like Bobby Dowd kind of stuck out, because he was uncommon for not doing that. What is uncommon is being so shameless about it. What's uncommon is videotaping a lot of it, being so transparently mercenary about it. And then also, with your kids being on the roster and with people within the program perceiving that there are some double standards. I understand, probably better than a lot of people, and I'm sure you are too, that this is a results business. And ultimately, if you're at the Power 4 level, you don't get an extension because you were a cuddly, molder of young men and training people to be better fathers and better leaders. You get an extension if your team wins a lot of games. And Colorado's roster, when Deion Sanders came in there, was pretty bad. There were a lot of dudes on that team who are not good enough to play Pac-12 football. But it's, I think, pretty clear from that story that the way that changeover was done was a way that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. And that includes some pretty important high school coaches and high school programs that are going to remember how they were treated at Deion Sanders' Colorado football program.
By the way, the last part of Matt's newsletter, talking about a lot of the different lawsuits in the NCAA, I got to read this. With the NCAA's public approval rating hovering somewhere near mosquitoes and bus station bathrooms, you can understand why they may not be excited for even more courtroom showdowns. You couldn't have summarized them any better than you did, unless it was like flies or whatever, bugs on a windshield. Matt Brown, extra points. Matt, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. And I know we'll have much more to get to down the road. Appreciate your time.
Of course. Oh, my pleasure, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
Matt Brown, by the way, it's the D1 Ticker, does an incredible job. The newsletter's in my hand, and it's worth it. Just the subscription to that, and with all of what he gets to get into. And the EA Sports thing is like everyone just frothed at the mouth for that to pop whenever it does.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm not like losing my mind or anything, because I'm not going to play it a ton. I'm sure I'll get it and I'll play it a little bit, but I was never one of those guys that was like 10th year of my dynasty mode or anything, but I know plenty of people who are like that, and so I'm fired up for them because I know how fired up they are. And now I'm just interested to see some of the details, and good for him to give us a little bit of a hint. I think maybe even slip. I think there's going to be 3 cover athletes, guys, but maybe 4. But power conferences, there's only 4. Mm-hmm. There's unless you're. I mean, who would you? You're not having a Pac-12, Pac-2 cover. So
no. Quinn Ewers will be. Oh, wait a minute. If we do,
hold on. Let me get through what I'm saying here. So my brain initially went. So okay, it's got to be. It sounds like it's 3 guys. They all play different positions, and they're from different conferences. So there's only 4 conferences to choose from. So, yeah, where you would think that, Shedeur Sanders would be an automatic, but then what about Quinn Ewers? I feel like he would have just as strong of a case. And then maybe you go, okay, there's only one quarterback then. Well, then maybe it's Travis Hunter's going to be like the Big 12 non-quarterback, the wide receiver guy, and then Quinn Ewers is – it's fun to think about what that might look like. The hard part is you can easily kind of identify, like, it's probably going to be a Colorado guy. That just makes the most sense.
Yeah, that would knock
for
Ollie
the Big
Gordon
12.
off the map.
But Ollie Gordon would be the other one you would think of. So maybe Ollie Gordon as the running back, especially coming off winning the Doak Walker, he would make a lot of sense. But then you wouldn't have a Colorado guy, which would just be surprising because I think many people just assumed that Shedeur would be on a cover because he partly pitched himself for it and just because I don't know why, just based on my Twitter feed, that's been the assumption is that he would be a guy. But, yeah, I would think it's Shedeur, Travis Hunter, Ollie Gordon from the Big 12.
Well, he's got a list here. He's got a list here of who do you think it will be. All right, we mentioned Ewers. This is from the SEC. Ewers, Carson Beck, Jackson Dart. Those three names, that's at least, again, remember, only one per position.
Right, so that means that it wouldn't be Shedeur if it's any of those guys because that's a quarterback right there.
All right, does have Travis Hunter listed. Damian Martinez and Cam Ward from the ACC.
They're not. I don't think that they're NCAA cover boys yet.
Does Florida State have one?
No, I would say DJU if he was a little bit better, but he is not as big. Like, why would you pick DJU over Quinn Ewers or Shedeur? You know, or Dylan Gabriel.
I'm trying to take into account brands and popularity and all of that. So, like, even the Dylan Gabriel, like, that means that somebody out of Ewers and Beck and Gabriel and Ward, Dart and Sanders, only one guy out of that group's getting the call there. So I would think it's either Ewers or Gabriel or Sanders. But
I
don't think it'll be Gabriel. I think it'll be Ewers or Shedeur.
But I'm thinking about who is the biggest name out of the Big Ten next year. I mean, there's not many bigger than Dylan Gabriel. But then again, there's the whole quarterback. So I don't know. Ollie Gordon out of the Big 12, Dylan Gabriel out of the Big 10. It's hard. It's hard to figure out who that would be.
I mean, you could throw Quinshon Judkins or Travion Henderson out there at running back. You could throw
does Jalen Milroe get any thought?
Yeah, maybe. You know,
that was one. Not just one that was brought up.
No, he definitely could. I don't know above like the only quarterback to get a cover though.
Brett Bingham saying the way I understood it is there is a cover for each power conference with more than one player, but only one with a position. So that could be something that kind of irons itself out.
Yeah, I mean, they're releasing multiple versions of the game, so there's multiple covers, and that could be for the systems as well. I wasn't thinking about this while I was talking. I probably should have gotten clarity on there. So there's like the Xbox version and the PS version and whatever, and maybe that's part of what you're talking about. But there's also what he was talking about is you get like the $90 version of the video game that's got the historic roster already built in that you don't have to buy for extra, and it's got like the decade's best teams or whatever as bonuses for buying the $90 version. And then there's the not so souped up version, but still souped up more than the original. That's like the $75 version. And then there's like the base. That's how video games basically work now is they've got like all these gussied up different versions. So, yeah, that's. I didn't think about the different systems having different covers. So, yeah, now I'm more confused than ever.
Let me read this, what Matt put in his newsletter. Each cover athlete is a current college football player who plays in a different power conference. There's plenty of interest initially that even one of the covers would have been Nick Saban, but that's not the case. Any number of athletes that played during the years the game was not released, previous Heisman Trophy winners, whatever, the Oregon Duck mascot. But I've been told that athletes will be current athletes, people you will see play college football this season. The athletes all play different positions. That means only one quarterback, one running back, etc. And I don't know if that means one quarterback for everybody or one quarterback per each power conference. But that'll be something that we'll look at some point down the road.
Yeah, I mean, that could be the case, and then it would make sense with all the different versions. But, yeah, I'm excited to see who it is. I would think out of the Big 12, Ollie Gordon or Shedeur Sanders are your best bets. And then, you know, you mentioned Jalen Milroe out of the SEC. Not giving any defenders any love right now, but I'm just trying to think of, like, who pops off as, like, a video game cover guy. And I'm drawn to offensive players as just my first thoughts.
I would think Quinn Ewers over Carson Beck, over Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, I would too.
I just believe that and again, a team that Georgia didn't play in the semifinals, although, again, they are won 2 of the last 3 national titles. Milroe, of course, got into the semifinals, but I would think if they're going to take a quarterback, it's the SEC would be Quinn Ewers.
Wet Blanket says can't have Gabriel. He lost the last Bedlam.
That's from Wet Blanket, yeah.
That is.
And MC Gusto, hey, we've been talking about this for two months. You're right.
Yeah.
It is a video game. I won't play it, but it is a big deal outside of wherever your bubble is in Orlando. And we're going to continue to talk about it. It's going to sell a lot of copies when it comes out in probably, July.
All right, so the last Bedlam is something that Oklahoma State will be able to have in their pocket forever, right? They have that. That is on par with North Carolina beating Coach K the last 2 times that they
Before
played
he
him.
retired?
Before he retired. The last game of his regular season at home when Jerry Seinfeld and like all these celebrities are there, and then again in the Final Four, they beat him as well. So that to me, those are 2. I'm sure there's others like that you'll always have.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah,
you can't.
More
ever
so
take
for the
that
fan
away.
bases involved in the general public, though, because I don't know how many people are like, remember that time that Oklahoma State beat Bedlam? But for Oklahoma State fans, it's a huge
It'll be
deal.
one of those things that you'll just always know.
Texas, it looked like, might have had a huge, overwhelming lead in their rivalry with A&M, but it looked like that might have been the last game when they kicked the field goal. But here we go. This fall, they start that back up. Here's another one about if it would have been more than players, but they're not going to do that. He's already reported that it will not be.
Yeah,
it will be only players.
Saban was ruled out, but that would have made a lot of sense, especially the timing of it all. If you were to have like a GM version, because I think that's what some people like as much as anything else is just the tooling of the rosters and the recruiting part of it and all those things. I mean, that's where you spend a lot of the time on those games like that, building up your dynasty. So, a GM-type version with a Saban on it would have made sense. But that's why I mentioned it, is because it's just the first time they're doing it again. And to have the various covers, like that's going to be a really big deal for Quinn Ewers or for, Shedeur Sanders or whoever ends up getting those. That's going to be a really cool honor. And it's going to be cool that every year that's now something that's obtainable for college players. So I'm glad to have it back. Like I said, and I'm not somebody that's like drooling at the mouth waiting for the release date, but I am interested in it, and I do think it's a good thing in the grand scheme of things for college football. We talk about so much of the annoying stuff or the negative stuff or the stuff that's maybe not good in the grand scheme of things, but I do think that this is certainly a win for everybody, even if you don't play the game.
MC Gusto, by the way, my bubble is in Ecuador, but got you. All right, so let's do this then, Garrett, since we were talking about quarterbacks.
MC Gusto.
Jim Nagy, who runs the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, put out this list. These are the quarterbacks. The 2024 draft is done. The 2025 draft started pretty much now. Here are some P4 names in no particular order who will be in the mix to try, will be a part of the Senior Bowl next year for 2025, the draft coverage. There's the list. No particular order. The star next to Riley Leonard, by the way, who's now at Notre Dame, is because he's from the Mobile area. Of all of those quarterbacks, looking at it, and again, there's a large chunk, how many of them are with the only ones with their original school coming out of high school?
Drew Aller, Carson Beck, Milroe, Jalen Daniels.
That's it.
And that's
you nailed them. Yeah. Those are the 4. Those are the 4. Obviously, Cam Ward, Incarnate Word, then Washington State, and then the U, where he is now. Shedeur was at Jackson State. DJ was with Clemson and Oregon State. Van Dyke was at Miami. You could go on. Ewers for a cup of coffee was at Ohio State. Dylan Gabriel, UCF at Oklahoma. Will Howard, K-State. Jackson Dart was at USC. Hudson Card, UT. Brosmer was New Hampshire and now Minnesota. And then on top of that, Riley Leonard was at Duke, and now he's at Notre Dame. McCord, Ohio State, and now Syracuse. Graham Mertz, Wisconsin, and now Florida. So those are the Donovan Smith, Texas Tech, and now the University of Houston. Those are the quarterbacks at least. And there's others. These are Power 4 conferences. This does not include any of the group of 5, because there's always going to be somebody that's going to get in the middle of that mix too. So those are the 4 that are with the original teams: Aller, Beck, Daniels, and Jalen Milroe. Coming up around the top of the hour, John Kurtz, Kansas City Sports Network. A little bit about what's going on with KU, Kansas State, and much more, including Dylan Edwards, who's transferring from Colorado to play for Chris Kleiman and company, and this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. The Dodge Power Shot Days, the runs out at the end of the month. The end of the month, April, remember, with 30 days, and sometimes most of them have 30 or 31, 30 days. That's tomorrow. It's over. And right now, if you want the Dodge Challenger or Charger GT for only $29,890 plus tax, title, and license. 495 horsepower. Chargers and Challengers available, the Scat Packs. Also, there's the 300 new cars. They're on the lot. A large chunk of pre-owned. I get a text from Alan Samuels when I go by and get my oil changed. There's always someone asking me, hey, do you want to trade in your vehicle? I kind of like the one I have, but if I ever wanted to, then obviously they are very much interested in your pre-owned car to trade in for a new vehicle. The Laramie Crew Cab, the 1500 Ram, save $10,000 off MSRP. The 2024 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, also available. And how about this? The financing of deals that will blow your mind. 0% financing for 72 months on the best-selling Ram. That's the one I mentioned. 2024 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab. It is Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. These will last. The month ends tomorrow. Ted Teague, the general manager. Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Alan Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul, Smokey, Craig. On Monday, we are awaiting the arrival of KT Leveston, who look, if you're a Kansas State fan, Bracket Cat, we might just as well dedicate this segment, this whole hour.
Oh, my goodness, because of John Kurtz, yeah.
Because John Kurtz is on the phone right now, so we have John Kurtz and then Katori Leveston, who I will dominate when he walks in the door because he's very scared of me. But that's coming up in this hour. So John Kurtz joins us now. John, I know that there's other guys that got drafted, but just your memories of KT Leveston there at Kansas State.
Man, great story. Really great story of a guy that started out, he could probably tell you a lot more about this, and I think he's been pretty upfront and honest about this, but, had some learning to do when he came into the program and really turned around his attitude. I remember Chris Kleiman talking about that at one point, just
how much of a turnaround he made in that department, really blossomed and realized a lot of his potential now to be a guy that was drafted. So I feel great for him, man. I mean, he was a stud, and I think so much attention was paid to Cooper Beebe on the offensive line, rightfully so, because the guy obviously is just incredible and was a third-round draft pick in his own right. But it probably took some of the shine off of KT Leveston that should have been there. And maybe that was fine for him to just kind of operate like that. But no, I was thrilled to see that. The other thing I will always remember about KT Leveston was there was a really great hype video that was made after K-State beat Oklahoma in 2022 when they went down to Norman the week after losing to Tulane in that Big 12 championship season. And K-State's camera crew does a really good job, and somebody caught him outside the locker room. I think it was before they were heading onto the field, and he was just screaming, "I don't like being doubted." And that's been repeated a lot by fans. I've seen that almost get like kind of the meme treatment in a really positive way, because it was a cool thing. It was just a really cool moment captured on video there. And then obviously K-State went out and won the game, which helped. So yeah, there's my KT Leveston file for you.
John, it seems like when you're winning, everything else kind of goes hand in hand with that. I know that K-State's pretty regular to getting guys drafted, but 7 guys in the last 2 drafts, I think you'd have to combine like the previous 4 or 5 to reach that number. Just the talent level coming out of Manhattan right now compared to the previous few years. Do you also feel that sort of extra excitement when talking about the program these days?
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's a really valuable point. I believe the last time they had this many taken in a 2-year span was 2002 and 2003, which, of course, culminated in the Big 12 championship. And, that was a team with El Roberson and Darren Sproles, and obviously a ton of talent there. And that was back in the day when Bill Snyder was doing that every single year. They were having 3, 4, 5 guys drafted because they were pumping out so much talent there in the late 90s and early 2000s when they won 11 games 6 times in 7 years. So I don't know that you're on that level right now, but it certainly is as good as it's been since then in terms of consistent talent production. And it's not even just draft picks. I look at the fact that they've had 4 players taken in the top 3 rounds each of the last 2 years, and it speaks volumes to where the program is and why they won a Big 12 championship, right? Because all those guys played on the Big 12 championship team, and so it makes a ton of sense. Obviously, you had Felix Anudike-Uzama in the first round, Julius Brents in the second round, Ben Sinnott in the second round, Cooper Beebe in the third round, and I think that was even kind of a surprise to some that he slid to the point that he did to the Cowboys. So they've had some real high-level talent there. It'll be interesting to see what happens this year because, DJ Giddens is a guy that could probably jump, and I would think he would get drafted, but, running back these days, probably not going to be too terribly high. So that may fall off a bit this year, but they're certainly reloading with a ton of talent right now because you look at this group that they're assembling for not only this upcoming season, but we were looking ahead even at 2025 here, a couple buddies of mine that cover the team, and thinking about the NIL price of what that team's going to be like in 2025 if you're bringing everybody back like Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards, et cetera, Jace Brown at receiver. They're going to have some pretty expensive pieces, but K-State's ponying up right now. They put together an incredible roster, and they're just even in the last week or two, I feel like the momentum has ratcheted up another notch or two for football in the transfer portal, and they got a high school commitment today that they beat out Iowa State, TCU, and Houston for. So there's just a lot of good synergy, a lot of good energy flowing through the football program right now.
When Dylan Edwards entered the portal, there were maybe 3 schools or so mentioned as possible destinations. But was there any doubt it would end up being K-State? And what has his commitment meant?
Well, the commitment is huge. I mean, I guess I'll start there and work backwards. It's huge because he's a total home run hitter and game breaker that I think just means defenses have to attack you in so much different of a way. I can remember when Deuce Vaughn left, is it Athlon that does the anonymous quotes from other Big 12 coaches? I'm trying to remember who specifically does that feature every year, but it's a really good one. And I can remember one of the things that was said about K-State going into last year was well, look, with Deuce Vaughn being gone, it completely changes the way you can defend them because you just don't have to worry about as much of the game-breaking ability there. And K-State didn't have quite as much of that. They had some really nice pieces on offense, and it was still a good offense. But when you lose the sort of home run game-breaking ability with that, it does change. So Jace Brown, I think, is a guy that is developing into that kind of a threat potentially at receiver. but he doesn't have the speed that Dylan Edwards does, where he was running a sub 4.4 laser time 40 at the Under Armour All-American camp, where he won the fastest man competition there. I mean, it's truly game-changing speed. And so you throw that in with Avery Johnson, by the way, who also has game-changing speed, and Jace Brown, who I think is turning into a star at receiver. I mean, they just have so many weapons, and it's a totally new dimension. I mean, they had Devon Booth on campus too, who I think was going to be ready to commit to them, Utah State transfer at running back. That would have been a great pull, but he's not Dylan Edwards. He's not that kind of dynamic. He would have been another guy similar to more like a Trayshawn Ward that they had last year, which again was a great pickup, but not somebody that can hit the home run the way Dylan Edwards can. So I just think it's the perfect complement to this offense, especially when you have DJ Giddens, who's a 1,200-yard back who had 1,500 total yards last year, has averaged almost 6 yards a carry in his career, and is a little bit – I mean, he's obviously more sturdy. He's still pretty fast, but he's a little bit more of a power kind of back, where Dylan Edwards gives you a tremendous complement to that. And just symbolically what it means for the program, man. I mean, it was a historic class in 2023 in the state of Kansas coming out recruiting-wise. Tons of talent there. And K-State now has secured the top 2 players. They have 6 of the top 11 there. They have done this. They went out and did what I think a lot of people doubted that they could do, which was pull in a huge haul from that in-state talent class and get a guy back who broke their heart before, and being able to land a big-time player like that who, yes, as you mentioned, did have, he mentioned Georgia. I'm not sure how serious the interest was there, but I know the interest was serious from Nebraska, Texas A&M also, which makes sense because of Colin Klein, and then Ole Miss, who seems to be landing just about everybody they want in the portal these days. So that was significant. I didn't have a ton of doubt because early on the word kind of got relayed to us that it seemed like this was something that was probably going to be in the bag, and heard it from enough places that I was pretty confident in it. The only hesitation is, I mean, we did see him obviously commit once and then commit to Notre Dame and then commit to Colorado. And, there had been buzz about like, is this going to happen in the first window of the transfer portal? And it didn't. So it was just the antsiness of how the recruitment had gone for him overall that held me back just a little bit. But especially once he got on campus, I was feeling pretty darn confident K-State was going to get that locked up.
Cooper Beebe is likely going to be the Cowboys' center of the future, if not of the present. Do you feel confident in his ability to learn something that he's never really done before?
Yeah, absolutely, man. That guy is just a stud all the way around. Like exactly who you would want to be from like a leadership, intelligence, smart standpoint. Also just an incredibly engaging and fun personality. I know this has nothing to do with playing center, but you should go check out on Twitter if you can find the picture of him dressed as Nacho Libre on Halloween the other year. I don't remember if that was this year or last year, but it's hilarious. I mean, the guy's just incredibly well liked in the locker room, great personality, very intelligent, great leader, and has just been dominant on the football field, has been able to move around when K-State needed him to. I mean, he had to go out and play tackle in a pinch sometimes in his career at K-State. I wouldn't be worried about that for a second. I think that guy is just as phenomenal an offensive line prospect as you could find, especially in terms of somebody that just has a really super high floor. I think that's about as safe a draft pick as you could possibly get, and as safe a plug-and-play option as you could find on the offensive line in the NFL. I mean, I'm no draft analyst, but just everything I know about the guy and everything that's been said about him throughout his career at K-State, not just from those within the program, but those on the outside, who cover the draft and cover the NFL, I've got no doubt that he would be able to do that and do it with flying colors.
What was the reaction like in Manhattan and the area when they announced the game in Dublin, Ireland?
It was a little bit mixed. I mean, it is a little bit mixed. It's definitely a cool thing. And I think a lot of people are really excited to go. I mean, even to myself, I was like, hey, that's a really cool, like once in a lifetime kind of trip. And the fact that it's not just a non-conference game at the beginning of the year. I mean, it has a lot of meaning with the way that the rivalry has developed between K-State and Iowa State. I think it's awesome. And I think a big reason that it's happening is because K-State wants the payday for the athletic department, which makes total sense. I mean, based on the realities of like the macroeconomics of college football right now, I think everybody can understand why schools would be looking for ways to make more money. And I know the Manhattan Mercury reported it was going to be $2.25 million that K-State would get as the payout to go do that because they are giving up a home game. But therein lies the rub. I think some are upset about now having back-to-back years with only 6 home games. The home schedule in totality that year definitely leaves something to be desired when you look at it. Iowa State at least having the juice of being a rivalry game, and typically games that are very competitive, very compelling games. It was one that would have really helped out with the home schedule there. There's obviously the angle of people who get frustrated with just losing the revenue for all the businesses in town for not having that home game. And, if you are into Iowa State, playing Iowa State at home, they're going to go from 2023 to 2028 without actually playing a home game against Iowa State, because they also have that gap in the schedule where they're only playing 3 out of 4 years, according to the schedule that the Big 12 put out. So it's definitely mixed. I mean, I'm kind of in between on it. Like, I definitely understand why they are doing it, and I definitely think it's a really cool opportunity, but at the same time, only having 6 home games back-to-back years, losing out on one of those opportunities, and one that definitely would have been a game that would have brought a great crowd and a great environment. It is a tough sacrifice, but I do think it's the kind of reality that everybody needs to ready themselves for in the new landscape of college football that we have.
Who do you think is more beloved between Chris Kleiman and Lance Leipold?
Boy, that's a good question. They're both fairly similar personality-wise. Because at first when you said popped the question, I was thinking it was going to be Jerome Tang or Chris Kleiman, and I was like, well, the Tang just personality-wise, I think draws people to him a little bit more, and Kleiman is perfectly content just operating behind the scenes, but Lance Leipold is very much the same in doing that too. Leipold has instituted more of an outright change. So I tend to almost lean towards Lance Leipold right now, just because it's a little newer, it's a little fresher, and the build was a bit slower for Chris Kleiman at K-State to get to the point where he is at right now, where Kansas, that's burned pretty hot and fast and heavy to get their fans all on board really, really quickly right now. So I guess because of that, I will give the slight edge there to Lance Leipold. He also gets probably some bonus points right now, even though I think Chris Kleiman spurned some legitimate interest in the offseason, and perhaps in the same job that Lance Leipold did. He just did it much more quietly than Lance did. Leipold played that thing well enough to get a lot of kudos and love from the fans for having it be, hey, we're really scared he's going to make the jump and take the Washington job, to coming out and getting to fire out the tweet that tells everybody you're staying and getting all the love and adulation from that. That was pretty well orchestrated to earn some brownie points with the fan base. So I guess because of that, I would lean toward Leipold.
Kansas has made a huge moves in the transfer portal for basketball. Baylor just got Jeremy Roach. Houston's bringing back pretty much everybody, but obviously their best player. Arizona's coming in, and they're bringing in guys. What do you think about what Jerome Tang and Kansas State have done in this offseason so far to counter that?
Yeah, there is so much going on with that right now, because they're still swimming around with some really big fish that they are trying to land. I think what they've done so far has been very good, very admirable, but they need to finish it off. I mean, Doug McDaniel is a tremendous kid. I think that was a huge one, and probably the most important of the group that they have so far. Guy that can come in and just be a dynamic guard, both in terms of scoring and distributing the ball, just kind of a combo guard. And a transfer from Michigan. I think that was a huge one. They just recently signed Bay Fall, who was a top 30 recruit and a McDonald's All-American last year before going to Arkansas. He's just more of a developmental big with a sky-high ceiling. He's really skinny, needs to put on some more muscle. But I do really like that addition. C.J. Jones, solid guard that they pulled in from Illinois Chicago, who's a former teammate of Buddy Rich, who's already on the team at K-State. They played together in Chicago. I think he'll be a really nice piece to come in out of the backcourt, and is somebody that was maybe a little bit underrated, who does have kind of NBA length at the guard position, pretty good shooting numbers, pretty good athleticism. I like that too. And Brendan Housen, look, K-State needed shooting really badly last year, and they got one of the best shooters, I think, in the portal. Yes, Villanova fans, I've been surprised to see their reaction to that. They were very, very crushed that he left and think he's going to be great, but that's a career 39% three-point shooter, and a guy that's just going to come out and purely snipe threes. So really good role player addition there. They need a big man. And Cliff Amori, who is the Rutgers big man transfer, it's been quite a saga. K-State had him on campus, So have many others. Georgetown, he's at Alabama right now. I know there had been some Baylor chatter with him. I think North Carolina is hotter to trot with him right now too. But there are a lot of people involved in his circle that are calling the shots, and it is really hard to figure out what exactly the hell is going on there. So they're in it. They definitely want him. He would be a huge addition as a rim protector, and that would drastically change the class, I think, if they can get him. But they're in tough territory now with not much time left for people to hop into the portal, and they're still in need of a big that I think would help out a lot. The guy to watch out for is Caleb Battle, who's one of the best scorers in the portal and another game changer in the class if they land him. I think K-State is feeling very confident about it right now. But Arkansas transfer, he had a 40-point game coming down the stretch run of the season. He was averaging like 26 a game the last 7 games of the year. That would be a really dynamic player to add. They did, I will say, the most significant loss they suffered in the portal was losing Day Ames, and I just rattled off a lot of cards they're pretty interested in. So the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. It's going to be a pretty new roster this year, not a lot of continuity at all from last season. David Gasson, probably the only real key contributor that's going to be back and playing big minutes for them next year. But they needed a talent upgrade. I'm impressed with it so far, but they got to go finish strong here for me to feel really good about it.
All right, John, just last question. How do you feel about the Chiefs somehow trading with the Bills? Like, how did they like pretend they were somebody else? Like, hey, this is the Bengals. Do you want to trade the pick? I don't understand why the Bills would trade with anybody like but the Chiefs. Like, why trade with the Chiefs to get Xavier Worthy and then the rest of their draft on the way down?
Dude, I couldn't believe that. I was floored. I mean, I've seen some good pushback on the Xavier Worthy thing from folks who have showed like if you look at the list of like the top 20 wide receiver 40 times at the combine, there's not a lot of real great production there out of NFL receivers. But if there's somebody who's going to get the most out of 4.2 speed, I would imagine that it's going to be Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So I can understand everybody's frustration there. And really, Brett Veach has just done a terrific job with the draft classes for the most part during his time in Kansas City, especially lately. So I'm going to go ahead and trust his eye and his acumen when it comes to that. And the point being the Bills, like, why would you be helping out the Chiefs with anything? Even if you think Xavier Worthy is not a great player and you think this may not really work out that well for him, I still don't understand why you wouldn't just default to, hey, this would be helping them get something they covet and something they need. Don't take the chance. I mean, they're absolutely baiting getting graphics thrown up there on the screen for years every time that they're playing the Chiefs, and Xavier Worthy is out there scoring about the fact that they executed that trade with them and then obviously executed the trade to allow the Chiefs to jump up and draft Patrick Mahomes too. I mean, I'm not complaining, but I saw some great reaction videos of Buffalo fans immediately after it happened, and I think that kind of tells the story, man. I almost feel bad for him. Almost.
Yeah, almost, but not really. All right, John, thank you so much, man. Always hopping on when we need you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Take care.
It's John Kurtz, Kansas City Sports Network, here with us on 365 Sports. KT Leveston, Midway High School, Kansas State, and now the Los Angeles Rams will be sitting right to my left. That's next. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for whatever you're looking to get done automotive-wise, whether you're looking to buy a new car, pre-owned car, get your car worked on. They can hook you up and make it all a very painless process. Richard Carr Motors celebrating Eclipse Month, and they have rarely seen savings, much like the Eclipse, all month long during this sales event. Save $11,000 on a GMC Sierra ATX 4x4. Plus, qualified buyers can get 1.9% financing for 72 months, and military and first responders can also save an additional $500. Get more details right now on the GMC Sierra ATX 4x4, but thousands in savings can be yours on that new model. And if you're looking to go pre-owned, they've got the hookup there as well. Their lot's loaded with 90 pre-owned cars and trucks, all highly inspected, good to go. You got peace of mind when you're driving them on the road, which is always very important, but 100% credit approval is always the goal, so they've got your back financially as well as they say yes when others say no. So check out the Eclipse Month savings all month long over at Richard Carr, like the GMC Sierra ATX 4x4, or look at that lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks as well. For 25 years in Central Texas, they've built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Log on to richardcar.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
All right, we're back here this 5 o'clock hour. Thanks to John Kurtz from the Kansas City Sports Network. A good lead-in because a lot of what we spoke about was, of course, Kansas State football, basketball with Jerome Tang, too. But now in studio, Midway All-State offensive lineman, now a member of the National Football League with the Rams, and former Kansas State star KT Leveston, who was on the show last week leading up to the NFL draft. Welcome back to Waco, young man.
Oh, yes, sir, man. It's a pleasure to be back here.
What was it like as the picks were counting down and there wasn't much time left on Saturday?
I mean, once it once about like half the 7th round went, I just was like, well, I mean, free agency isn't bad. Like, as long as, like, you know, you get an opportunity is what you do with the opportunity. So I wanted to make the most out of the time, like, with my family, my friends that were there. So I got up from the TV and I just started, like, hanging out with them a little bit more, like, socializing a lot more. So, try to make the most of the moment.
So, who's the first person you talked to? Was it Les Snead or Sean McVay?
Les Snead.
So he called up. What did he say to you?
Oh, man, it was crazy. He was like, "Hello, is this KT?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "This is Les Snead with the LA Rams. How would you like to come out to LA?" And I was just kind of shook because what I was hearing back, it wasn't from the Rams. So I was expecting like a different pick. And I mean, like, it kind of took me by surprise, but I was like, man, this is a phone call I've been waiting for. Like, this whole period of time, like from January to now, like, I mean, everybody's always been saying, like, it only takes one team for dreams to come true. And, I mean, they were the team, and my dreams end up coming true.
Can you explain I can see it in the smile on your face, just reliving it, but can you explain the sense of relief? I mean, combined with, the dream coming true, just what is that? I don't even know what you call the emotion you were probably feeling, but relief and happiness and all that rolled into one.
Oh, man, it was like my whole life just like basically was like on a playback in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew like all that hard work, all the pain that I've been through, like everything that I've gone through leading up to this moment has paid off. And I knew like I was relieved like to hear that call, to know that I can get an opportunity to continue playing and get an opportunity to see my name go across that TV. And then my girlfriend, my grandma, my aunt, my sisters, like, I mean, they were just like, just the looks on their face and their reactions were, I mean, just very inspiring, because they know, like, they've poured so much into me. And just to know that, like, man, like, y'all don't have to, like, worry anymore. Yeah. Like, I got you.
So I would imagine there were probably some undrafted free agent, like, questions. Like, at that point, you probably teams calling and just kind of seeing what's up. But, you know, I've always heard, like, sometimes when you go late, it's almost better because you get to kind of pick where you want to go. But it means something to see your name on that TV, like you just said, doesn't it? To see, like, I got drafted. I mean, it would have been cool. You were going to go to the NFL either way, but to get drafted was a big deal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of times, like, you hear, like, if you're leaving college and teams don't have a draftable grade on you, like, yeah, like, in a sense, yes, sometimes it's better to go as a free agent because you get to pick where you want to go. But at the same time, though, like, when you look at, like, contract-wise and everything, like, getting drafted is a little bit better just because and I don't know, like, too much into it, but I feel like you get more guaranteed in this, like, in different areas and stuff like that in your contract. So it's a lot of nuances around there. Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of let my agent, like, handle that.
Sure,
and, like,
yeah.
just kind of fill me in a little bit. I ask him a lot of questions. Sometimes I feel like he may get sick of it, but
that's what he's there for. Yeah, right.
Hey, by the way, he's working for you.
Yeah, he's working for you.
he's working for you.
He loves it, though. I mean, I keep him busy with a lot of questions. Like, you know, I'm always loving to learn, like, new things and learn about different stuff.
I traded a Texter 5 with Jeff Hume over the weekend, and he was so thrilled for you. And you guys obviously know each other incredibly well from Midway. But he made this comment. He goes, back-to-back years with the Rams. And I'm like, Trey Tomlinson, you know him. You guys were teammates. Have you guys even spoken yet?
Yeah, so after I got drafted, Travis hit me up. He was really fired up. He said, "Hey, bro, we get to play back together." And I told him, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm excited, man." Like, he was the first thing that came to mind after the Rams called me. I was like, "Man, Trey plays for the team. Like, we gonna be back on the same team." And then I have a former teammate from Kansas State got drafted to the Rams in 22, and so he's on there. Then actually, I have two former teammates. But one of them just got traded to the Rams this past year. He got drafted back in 2019, but I can't remember what team though. But he just got traded to the Rams, and then two of my coaches from last season are two coaches on that coaching staff. So I know a lot of familiar faces going into that team.
And they always say, you know, Los Angeles and Waco. I mean, they're just like that. Same thing, basically. Yeah.
Hey, I mean, with this traffic on 35, you can go ahead and say it.
Getting closer.
Yeah.
Getting closer.
What you guys don't know in the studio is Franklin and the Bridge and MLK, there's another wreck right there. There's like a fire truck and 4 police cars. And so, but you're talking 35 traffic. That was backed up over the bridge, which caused the delay too. KT Leveston, Kansas State, Midway High School, LA Rams with us right now in studio here on 365 Sports.
So the Rams made a big commitment up front on both sides of the ball in this draft. Their first 2 picks were on the defensive line. You will not get to block against Aaron Donald in training camp, which I'm sure that is like equal parts of a bummer and like, well, good. But you do, like Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, like the way that you're going to have this rookie class is all kind of getting better together. Like, how exciting is that?
It's an excitement because, I mean, I get to go up against the best of the best. I get to elevate my skills. I get to help other people elevate their skill levels. And, I mean, just ultimately meeting new faces, like building new relationships, getting out there more into the world. Like, it's honestly a true blessing.
KT, where did the NFL dream originally start for you? I mean, the football dream itself. I always like to ask guys that. Sometimes their fathers were in the pros and it's just a natural connection. Sometimes it's just, you stumbled upon it. What was your story for folks out there that don't know much about you?
So it's funny because, like, I've always been big growing up. So I played baseball, basketball, and soccer all the way up until middle school. And, like, everybody, like, I was always, like, towering over people. And to put it in perspective, when I was 11 is when I first hit 6 feet. And so –
Whoa.
Yeah.
And so
I'm still waiting. I'm 44.
Yeah. Almost there.
One day.
So everybody was always telling me, like, I was telling my grandma and my mom, like, oh, he needs to play on a football team. Like, he can go play for my Pee-wee's football, like my son's Pee-wee's football team, this and that. And I was like, I was like, oh, yeah, I want to play football. But my whole family, we were all basketball family. So when I got to my grandma, she always thought it was dangerous, so she wouldn't let me. But when I got to middle school, I was like, well, the middle school has a football team. Like, can I go out for it? Because, it's free. And my mom was like, yeah. So then I ended up playing. And I remember I lined up on the we were, like, trying out for positions. And you had to, like, run, like, 40 yards and stuff. And so I lined up with the wideouts. And I remember Coach Bruce, he said, get that big boy off the line. And so that's how I got thrown in with the O and D line. And then I ended up playing D line from 7th grade to my sophomore year. And I just kind of, like, fell in love with the game. And it was just something that, just kind of you stumble upon. And I love basketball still to this day, but I was a lot in more football condition shape to, like, be, like, actually make it. So I pursued football more, but I still played basketball, like, my whole high school career and everything. But it was just something really, it just came out of nowhere. But once I started taking it more serious was after my freshman year, when college just started noticing me a little bit more. Then going to my sophomore year and up, like, that's when I was like, oh man, like, I actually have a shot to, like, get to college. And then once I got my junior year, once I started getting offers and stuff, then I was like, wow, like, I could probably, like, I can actually make it to the NFL someday. So then going to K-State, my first couple of years were a little rough here and there. I had a couple starts. I played in a couple games. But then, like, my last, like, 3 years, like, that's whenever I realized, like, wow, I can actually play in the league. So, and from there is just, kind of where I'm at now.
Very cool.
Craig brought up the undrafted free agent options, and sometimes it might even be better that way because your agent can find a better fit. But, you got drafted. That's great. You'll always be able to say that. Was there any time at all Saturday at all when anyone contacted him or he contacted you and said, hey, you might be going somewhere else? Was that just a dead period for you?
Yeah, so he was getting multiple calls from different teams, and they're kind of like, hey, like, if we don't take this guy, like, keep an eye on, like, we're gonna give KT the call. So he's, like, relaying messages back to me. Then they take another guy. Then another team says same thing. They take another guy, and so it was a lot of back and forth. And then every time my phone was ringing, like, my family was, like, getting their phones ready, like, ready to record. And I'm like, no, this ain't the call. This is just my agent.
Spam.
So, but it was towards the end, actually, right before the Rams got me, we were having a lot of discussion with the Broncos, and their coaches had called, and they were really wanting me, and they said they were going to use one of the last picks to get me. So then whenever, like, he texted me, he was like, hey, like, be on the lookout, like, because the Broncos are really wanting you. They're going to try to use one of these picks to get you. So I'm like, okay, like, if I get a call, I get a call. If I don't, okay, like, we'll figure it out. And so I'm, like, I'm talking with my aunt, and I just see a random number pop up on my phone. So I'm like, oh, this actually might be the call from the Broncos. So I pick it up, and the Les Snead with the LA Rams said, hey, this is LA Rams. And I was like kind of confused because I was like, the LA Rams? I thought he was like, saying the Broncos were going to get me. But being picked at 254. Being from Waco, the 254. I
was going to ask you about that. Yeah. Well, that's just fate, right?
Like, yeah.
254.
That was God's plan right there. So, I mean, everything works out in mysterious ways, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to give them my all, and I'm going to go try to win the Super Bowl this year.
KT Leveston with us in studio. So you mentioned to me you're going back to Manhattan. You're going to be here for another day. I think tomorrow you're going back to Manhattan, and you're going to go back to the grind, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Eventually your agent takes care of all your travel plans and everything else, and the Rams, of course, are going to set you up when you get out there.
Yeah. So, I leave tomorrow and I head back up to Manhattan. I'm going back to work out with my strength staff for about a week and a half. What he usually calls it, he puts us through the grease. And so I mean, I love it because, I mean, ultimately the grind never stops. Like, no matter, like, if I'm playing football or if I'm not, like, if you want to make it in life, like, you always got to, like, work hard. You always got to put yourself in uncomfortable positions to be great. And that's how, you just elevate yourself in life. And at the end of the day, like, whenever you're laying your head on your pillow, you got to ask yourself every night, like, man, did I give it my all today? So, that's what I got to go do.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, it just starts, like, the work's just starting, really. Yeah, right? I mean, you've worked to get here, but now you got to work more to keep it going. You were one of 3 players drafted. Ben Sinnott also got picked up, and Cooper Beebe as well, and Sinnott going to the Commanders and then Beebe to the Cowboys, so they'll see each other in the division. But what's it like just seeing your teammates? I know you saw some guys last year, but what's it like to be watching and see their names come across and see where they're going now as well?
Oh, man, I was fired up when I saw Ben's name. I was fired up when I saw Coop, especially Coop because, I'm close to both of them, but, like, our O-line group, we've been together for the last 5 years. With our right guard, he came in 2020. So he was with us for 4 years. And, I mean, we were always like, we built that special bond, that brotherhood. So when I saw Coop and then when I saw him going to Dallas, I texted him right away. I said, man, you're going to the greatest state in America.
Right, yeah.
He's going to probably play center there.
Yeah.
But he's not played center.
Yeah, so.
But you think he's going to have that unlocked?
Yeah, so him, like in what we do is we really pride ourselves on being real versatile. And for him, like, obviously he's played left tackle, left guard, right tackle. He hasn't had any live game center reps, but he's had a lot of practice reps at center. He knew that really coming back this last year that teams were kind of looking at him at he could play guard, but they're mainly like, want to know if he can snap and stuff. So he knew that he was going to have to, like, prepare to be a center. So, I mean, all last year, like, he's taking extra reps at center. Like, if we finish up our script and then, we're getting some extra reps before practice ends, he may go in and he'll tell Gil, hey, Gil, like, you want to play some guard and I can play center. So, like, we were all switching different positions. Like, it'd be crazy. Like, sometimes if you come to one of our practices, I might go over to right guard, Gil might be at left tackle, and then Coop be at center, Duff would be at left guard. Like, so just so that way we know, like, okay, we can do this confidently.
During those first couple of years you mentioned, the first year redshirted, Bill Snyder, of course, is who recruited you, and then the next year you played a little bit. Did you question yourself at all? Did you have days when you wondered, and how did you get through that time? Because you were coming out of high school as a star.
Yeah, it was tough. My freshman year, obviously, like, I was like the man in high school, and then, like, going to college, like, that was one thing, like, the older guys really preach, like, I mean, everybody's coming from all over the U.S., but everybody on their team was that guy. So, like, just going in there, like, I had to kind of, like, humble myself, like, really lock in to learn from those older guys, learn how they carry themselves, how they prepare themselves every day, and just listen to them when teaching me, like, the different plays and everything. And it was like, learning the playbook under Snyder was it wasn't very easy. But, Snyder, like, his staff, like, they really pushed you, and they ultimately wanted to see, like, how much you could take before you can break. And, I mean, that's, like, what builds strong men. And then once he retired, once his staff split, then coming with Kleiman, then having to learn a whole new playbook in 7 months, it was like, another, like, I was like, oh man, like, this is kind of, I just learned the other playbook. Like, now I got to learn this new one. So it was kind of also a struggle too. But, Kleiman and Rouse and his staff, like, they always told me, like, man, like, we believe in you and everything. So I just had to, like, I was slow to, like, getting out there. But once I, like, found that belief in myself, I mean, it was no turning back. I was a pretty unstoppable player at that point.
KT, he is he kind of, like, to me, it's funny. You look at him, and if you just watched him, you'd be like, oh, this guy's going to be like a psycho. He's going to be a grinder. He's like, he might be a yeller or kind of a grumpy dude. But then you talk to him, and he's like one of the more compassionate coaches I think I've ever come across, where he, like, right after COVID, he would, like, we're at Big 12 Media Days. He's like, you guys don't understand, like, what it's like to go to practice on Monday, see a guy and go, okay, here's what we're going to do. And then Tuesday, like, oh, you're not going to see this guy for 2 weeks. Like, he's not going to be here. He's just going to be on Zoom. And the way that he talked about how that affected you guys as players and all of that, like, it was very impressive to see, like, his, like, level of, yeah, if I have to ratchet up and be a crazy person, I can do that. But most of the time, I'm just going to be exactly what they need me to be in that moment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a phenomenal dude. And like I said before, like, he knows what to say in the perfect situations. Like, it doesn't matter if we're having good days or it doesn't matter if we're having a bad day. Like, he knows exactly what to say that's going to get everybody going and everybody that's going to have the ultimate 100% trust into him. And I mean, like, he's a very compassionate coach. Like, he's loving. He treats everybody like we're his own. He's going to give you his all. He doesn't want to, like, like, run it like, oh, this is, like, you do it my way or you leave. He wants, like, he takes ideas from players. Like, I know in 21, like, he was asking the captains, like, hey, what do y'all think about this, this, and this? Like, every single week we always have, like, a leadership meeting, and we always have, like, a captain's meeting. And so it's, like, a select group of leaders on the team that the team has selected, and then we all go and meet with Coach Kleiman and a couple other staff members, and he opens the floor. He's like, hey, like, are there any changes that we need in the locker room, any changes in nutrition, recovery, the weight room? Like, what are y'all thinking? And, we give them our ideas and our thoughts, and, like, we'll hear from other teammates too. We'll be like, hey, like, do y'all have anything that we may have to bring up to Kleiman? And they'll give us suggestions, and we'll bring them up. And he'll, like, if he likes it, he'll go with it. If he doesn't, he'll, like, try to, like, find, like, a middle spot of, like, where his idea is and where our idea is, and we'll try to meet in the middle somewhere. So, I mean, he's really, like, he's a player's coach. Like, he's 100% a player's coach, and that team is 100% the player's team. It's not his team.
You said you're going to go back to Manhattan. You strike me as somebody who's going to keep close tabs on the program once you leave. So you see all, like, the hubbub about a particular running back. Like, are you going to pay close attention to the gets and kind of the roster and things like that moving forward with the Wildcats?
Yeah, I was pretty shocked to see that Dylan Edwards went back, but I mean, at the same time, I know they need a lot of depth at running back. They got DJ Giddens out there, but I mean, Jimmy White's on the come up, and then you got Joe Jackson coming up, and so, but I mean, who knows if DJ leaves after this year or if he comes back to play another year. But they just would need more depth here in the future because some of those running backs have maybe 2 years left. And if you can bring in a young running back that can produce for the next 3 to 4 years, and now in 2 years, now you can go look for, like, a freshman running back or a transfer running back. So that's going to be pretty good. But, I mean, yeah, that program is as solid as it can be right now. Like, I always tell people, like, they're going to compete for a natty next year, because especially with the 12-team playoffs, they're pretty stacked at wideouts. They're stacked on the defensive side. That running back room is starting to grow because you see, like, Dylan Edwards, what he did at Colorado, bringing his talents back to Kansas. We wanted him originally, but
right, that's what I was referring to. It's it's the portal era, though, man. You can't burn bridges, right? Because you never know how you might wind back up where you started in some ways.
No, yeah. So I mean, those coaches still have a ton of trust in them, and I mean, guys, like, commit and decommit all the time. So I mean, you necessarily don't hold grudges right there. Now, if a guy were to do something bad to where like the coach is like, okay, then no, then I guess they wouldn't bring him back. But I mean, he didn't do anything terrible. He didn't burn any bridges, so that's why they're bringing him home. And I feel like he's going to do a great job out there with DJ alongside with him too.
How explosive as a lineman was Avery Johnson, with all due respect to Will Howard, who could run and also did a good job now at Ohio State. But having Avery Johnson, did your blocks did they have to be as long, or did you just need a little crease and he was gone?
No, I mean, he's a fast dude. Like I love Will to death. Like, he's a brother to me, and he was a great guy. But I mean, he knows he wasn't the fastest dude out there.
He's just been lying, right? He's like, dude, we can see. Yeah, you're definitely not faster.
No, but with Avery, I mean, it was just, if you open a hole, he's hitting it. So like, it was definitely fun. The best game I can say that, like, you know, you can kind of compare his running to was Texas Tech, where he had I want to say he had 6 touchdowns,
huge game,
5 touchdowns, something like that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, just open, like, all you got to do is just open the hole for him, and he was gone.
Yep.
And so, I mean, that kid picks up speed too. So, I mean, if you're thinking like, oh, like I got an angle on him, nah, you better try to hit top speed. You're not catching him.
So we didn't even get to ask you that meant you got to experience the Pop-Tarts Bowl, right?
Oh, yeah.
What was that like? It was, I mean, I'm not sure if you saw, I'm sure your girlfriend did, but like the social media around that and the spectacle that Pop-Tart was. What was that like just as participating that week? And they seemed to make it fun for you guys.
Yeah, so the Pop-Tart Bowl, they did an amazing job with that bowl the whole entire week. Like, we got a chance to go to Universal. We got a chance to go to the fun spot and, like, meet up with, like, the local kids and play around with them. We got – what else did we do? Well, we did a couple things there. But they did a lot of, like, great things for us. The hotel we stayed at was amazing. And then just the game itself was phenomenal. Like, outside of, like, you know, obviously winning the game, it feels a lot better. But just playing in that game, like, that environment that they set up leading up to that game, like, it was great. Like, I mean, NC State, their fans brought it. Our fans brought it. NC State team, they brought their best game, and we brought our best game. So, I mean, it was a very competitive game. They kept the crowd into it, and then that Pop-Tart running around, the mascot, man, he was awesome. Like, we had kind of talked to him a little bit when we were on the stage. Like, he was whispering to him, and dude is just hilarious in there. So
funniest post game I've ever seen. I mean, it was amazing.
And the Pop-Tart was good.
Yeah. Bet y'all had a lot of free Pop-Tarts that week, huh? You kind of have to watch it a little bit. Like, they got too many Pop-Tarts.
Oh yeah, like so in our, like, players lunch that they set up, every time you went down there, they had Pop-Tarts just sitting on the table. So guys would, like, grab a box. Like, they'd have, like, 50 to, like, 100 boxes.
What's your favorite kind?
See, I'm an old-fashioned dude. I'm a brown cinnamon sugar guy.
There you go. Frosted, unfrosted.
I wasn't.
You frosted or unfrosted on the brown sugar cinnamon? Like
frosted.
Okay, yeah. There. I mean, we're same wavelength. Yeah.
Jerry, here's how popular they're getting. Jerry Seinfeld has a movie coming out this week.
He does
about Pop-Tarts.
That's a crazy deal. We had John Kurtz. He was talking about, I think you had beaten Oklahoma and you were walking around on the field after the game. I don't like being doubted. I don't like you. Like, you had a very emotional type of moment with that win. Do you remember that?
Yeah, man. I remember that win like it was yesterday. It was a very emotional win, and it was a statement on, like, what that team was showing, like, giving the Big 12. Like, we're telling y'all, like, Kansas State is coming. Like, everybody overlooks Kansas State because a bunch of farm boys go there. We don't get the big flashy recruits, but we get the guys that want to come in, that want to work hard, that want to, you know, develop the right way. Like, you look at, like, the OUs, the Texas, even, like, Baylor, TCU, like, those guys get, like, 4 or 5-star guys. Like, I mean, yes, like, I was only a 3-star, but I was, like, still a top recruit.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, I think in my time there, we probably had 2 4-star guys come through Kansas State. And with Avery Johnson being one, and we had another quarterback that just transferred out, he was the other one. Everybody else were 3 stars, and a lot of guys didn't have stars. They had no offers. They came in as walk-ons and earned scholarships. And so, I mean, like, going into that game, it was tough because we had just came off a loss to Tulane, which Tulane had a great year that year. to beat USC
yeah.
in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, and they won their championship or they lost? I can't remember.
I think they won. I think they did. But
Tulane?
Yeah.
They won the conference.
Yeah.
And then played USC and beat them up at the Cotton Bowl.
So, I mean, like, a lot of people, like, they were ready to write Kansas State off after losing to them, which they had a great team. And so we, like, you know, our quarterback, he didn't have the best game. Like, the O-line, we didn't have our best game. So, I mean, like, online, like, everybody's like, oh, man, this O-line is trash, or this quarterback's trash, this offense is terrible. Like, what is Coach Klein doing? Like, so we were like, I mean, just delete Twitter, delete Instagram, delete Facebook, like, stay off social media. Like, guys, it's time to work this week because, I mean, we ain't got nothing to lose. People already don't like us now. So we just went in there. We played our game. We played so free that week, and we had a great week of practice. And then, I mean, when we went out there, we were playing like we had nothing to lose because we did have nothing to lose because everybody had already written us off. And so, I mean, Adrian had one of his best games. Our O-line, I don't remember what we rushed for. I want to say it was like 300 or something like that. And so we had a really great game. And, I mean, it was we didn't lose the game we didn't lose the lead the whole game. And, I mean, their crowd was electric. Like, I always tell people, like, that was the best game I ever played, and that was awesome that I got that experience because, I mean, they just did all the lights and everything.
Yeah, it's a cool place.
Like, one of my best friends, he was an OU alum, and I tell him, I'm like, man, it was so lit because, like, whenever they would do the lights and stuff on a timeout, and, like, the crowd would just be like,
oh, yeah.
And, like, it was just, like, you could hear all the yelling. So, and we always joke about it as an O-line. Like, we get the play call, and we couldn't hear each other. So we just be like, just put somebody in the ground, hit somebody. And so, like, it was awesome. It was an awesome experience. And I mean, like, after that game, like, we wanted to let people know, like, hey, we're coming. Like, we mean business this year. And, I mean, ultimately we went to go win the Big 12.
Yep.
Well, you're going to the NFL. Autumn is in the studio. You want to say hi to Autumn? Mention Autumn?
Hello, Autumn.
Yeah.
Autumn's my girlfriend.
Yep. Hello, Autumn. Glad you're in the studio with us. KT, remember the years at Midway and also what you did at K-State. Congratulations on getting the call. Enjoy the next week and a half, although it's going to be a grind, and then go out to L.A. and go represent the 254. I know you will. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Great to see you. KT Leveston, Kansas State, now a member of the Los Angeles Rams from Midway High School, with us in studio on 365 Sports.
It's Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2024 Ram 1500 Lone Star with 0% for 72 months. Don't miss out on this incredible deal. Hurry in today and drive home in the truck of your dreams, only at Allen Samuels in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patient now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, presented by Texas Beef House. You may say, Paul, what are you doing over here in the corner, all alone? Well, that's because we're trying something different, because we have this cool vibe here, and we don't ever use it. So I made a Google Slides presentation. So pretend like I am the cool guy at your office who does cool PowerPoints and slides promotions. But after the draft this week, draft like this, not like that. Draft like the Rams, not like the Browns. Look, the Rams, I know, just had their first-round pick since 2016. And maybe I'm a little biased because they used their first 2 picks on Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, people I love like sons because they played for the 2023 Florida State Seminoles. But they addressed 2 huge areas of need with the 2 best players available at that position at the point in the draft. And because of all their years of draft pick trading, they loaded up on things in the middle rounds. Do not draft like the Browns, who trade away a bunch of picks for Deshaun Watson, a guy who's played in 12 of 34 games since he's been back. Now, while they did make some good picks in the draft and some guys who should be able to help them, they did not get a lot of value. Plus, they did not have a lot of picks because they traded most of them away for a guy who we all know has not played very much. Next up, draft like this, not like that. Draft like the 49ers, not the Broncos. The 49ers see guys that they like. They get dudes who are ball players. They don't go by anybody else's board but their own. They're not involved in the hype. And look, if you read assessments of the 49ers draft, they'll say they overdrafted Ricky Pearsall. They overdrafted Renardo Green. They should have maybe needed this guy. You know what they did? They went out and saw guys who can make plays and help a team that's already really well established and help them right away get back to a Super Bowl, and did that. Ricky Pearsall fits in really well with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and can move the chains and get first downs. They went and got guys that they liked that fit their system and did that. The Broncos overdrafted a quarterback at number 12 in Bo Nix because they got desperate. Now, Sean Payton, a supposed quarterback whisperer, but the only quarterback he's whispered was Drew Brees, and I kind of think he hit the ground running when he got to New Orleans. That was just a good match between quarterback and coach. We'll see if Sean Payton is indeed a quarterback whisperer, plus the amount of picks between 12 and 76 that a team that really, really needed picks and needs to rebuild did not have was very telling as you go through the draft. Number 3, draft like the Texans, not like the Falcons. The Texans addressed almost every need they've had in the last 2 drafts and were able to stock up on picks, get the talent that they needed, move around in every round like they have the last couple of years, and built around C.J. Stroud in a huge way, also helped by building the defense. The Falcons don't like what they did. I'm a big fan of Michael Penix Jr., but you're also not playing him ideally for at least 2 years and maybe even 3, and he's already 24 years old. You had a ton of needs on defense. You did not address them early on in the draft. You drafted Michael Penix after giving Kirk Cousins 100 years, $100 million guarantee. It might feel like 100 years for the Falcons before they ever reach a Super Bowl again. But if they get there with either of these 2 guys, I will be proven wrong. But right now, doesn't look like they got value at number 8, especially after spending $100 million on Kirk Cousins. Number 2, draft like the Cardinals, not like the Titans. The Cardinals, knowing they've been in rebuild mode, and this is saying a lot, the Cardinals are one of the worst run franchises historically in all of sports. But the last two drafts, they've had a GM who likes to move around and do things. This year, they didn't move around too much. They just said, we are tied to Kyler Murray. Whether that was a good decision or not, we won't know for a little while until he can be healthy. But let's get weapons around him. Let's build offensive linemen around him. And let's use all those other picks on defense. And they did that. The Titans picked at 7. Needed more value for the pick than they got, while J.C. Latham should be able to step in and play right away. He might be a right tackle and not a left tackle, meaning they still have a problem at left tackle and could have traded back and gotten more picks in a draft where they did not have a lot. The Titans are in full rebuild mode, but they've got some veterans around them. They're trying to make everything good around Will Levis to see if that actually works. They did not do enough in this draft to help him immediately and might be drafting a quarterback again next year. And finally, number 1, draft like the Eagles, not like the Cowboys. This should not be a surprise. The Eagles stayed put in the first round. Kenyon Mitchell fell to them. Cooper DeJean, they went up and got him in the second round. They drafted all kind of players who can help them. I love the draft picks of Will Shipley, Anaya Smith, and Johnny Wilson in particular to give more weapons to their offensive special teams. The Cowboys, though, in other hands, you see Dak crying here, stressed out and upset. That's going to be his reality. Now, look, they did bring back his best friend in Zeke Elliott today. Whoop-de-doo, that might be a running back who is not able to start in the NFL anymore, in spite of what Jerry Jones says. They wasted a third-round pick on a linebacker they could have gotten in the 6th round when they could have gotten a young running back. They are not building weapons around Dak Prescott. Now, if Ryan Flournoy, their 6th-round pick, proves to be a weapon, I will eat my words. Like the picks of Tyler Guyton, like the pick of Cooper Beebe, like the pick of Marshawn Nealon, that gave them a lot of value. That's where they went. Then they went off the rails and stopped getting value, plus did not make trades when they could have to get more picks down the line. Don't like what the Cowboys did. They're in salary cap hell, and they continue to make bad decisions. Could be a long year in the NFC East, especially since the Washington Commanders also had an excellent draft. That's another top 5 for another day. Thanks for watching the Top 5. Please like and subscribe. Share it with your friends. Have a great week, everybody.
All right. Again, brought to you and sponsored, Paul. Thank you very much. TexasBeefHouse.com, who last week had an amazing online and live auction. In fact, online, more people than they could ever expect. And they sold hundreds of pounds of Wagyu, farm-raised Wagyu beef to you, the customers from throughout the country. Couple of quick notes. R.J. Martinez, who had transferred into Baylor, they, of course, had the quarterback battle. He has entered the transfer portal. Chris Hummer with that note. Not a surprise. Now we'll wait to find out DeQuan Finn or, God, I just went blank.
Sawyer Robertson.
Sawyer Robertson, the transfer from Mississippi State, who was here last year, on what decisions, if that comes out, if they have picked the QB1, or will they let the competition run into the summer and into the fall, too?
Well, R.J. Martinez, to my knowledge, wasn't even on scholarship. If he was, it was for like a semester. He was a walk-on originally from Northern Arizona. I don't know kind of what he thought in his head about the opportunity at Baylor, because the door just never cracked open for him wide enough to like play significant minutes. And even when it got down to him, it didn't last long before, you know, their top 2 choices were available last year with Shapen and Robertson. So he got a little bit of play, but I can't imagine it was fulfilling enough. So not at all surprised to see him enter the portal, because he can probably go play at more like a Northern Arizona or somewhere like that. But he had a lot of positive comments made during the course of spring about his play and his fit in this new offense. So that's the thing, is like maybe he would have been a better backup in this offense, but he's not going to be a backup because he's hitting the transfer portal like you said. So good luck to RJ. He was here for 2 years. Was it just last year?
Last year.
Just last year. So, yeah, good luck to him.
Spavital did discuss, he goes, he can spin it now, but again, you can't have all. Although you'd love to have everybody carry over.
They also lost Bryce Simpson, offensive lineman, into the portal as well. So that's just keeping track of a number of guys who are in the portal here for Baylor in particular over the last couple days, or last few days, I should say.
Matt Brown, remember the EA Sports segment we did with him, among anything else? He had mentioned that on the EA cover of 25, he clarified this just a minute ago. Quick clarification, since I've seen some confusion here. I am reporting that cover athletes are all coming from different power conferences. I am not saying that every power conference will be represented.
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't be because, there's 4 of them, so I guess there could be, but.
No, I think that he just basically said he's not saying that every power conference. You might have the SEC and Big Ten only, who knows, as the ones represented, but we'll find that out when it's released sometime this summer. All right, Emery Winters dialing up everything for 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW. If you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe button. Spread the word of what we do. 365 Sports. Jack McKenzie, who runs basically even the mother of the mothership, and then also Garrett Ross, who today, great job, Garrett, as always, weaving in and out of all of what we have, information, content, topics, and guests. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. Thanks to our amazing sponsors and to you who watch and listen every day. Back again tomorrow, triple option at 1. We're back at 3. This is 365 Sports, and good night.
Ideal MRI